Okay, it's 9 a.m. Good morning. We are going to reconvene open session. Jessica, let's establish a quorum.
Dr. Solocito,
Here.
Mr. Espinoza,
Here.
Dr. Grant,
Here.
Ms. Pulowski, here, Dr. Bradbury.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, so today we're going to do things in a little bit of a different order. We are going to start with 17A and just conclude the budget discussions. Dr. Nunez, we went over 17A through E minus the budget discussion. So we're just going to finish that today. We're going to take any public comments if anybody is wanted to make comments about 17A through E that wasn't here yesterday. I want to allow for that. So we'll open that up afterwards, and then we'll move back to agenda item 15. So agenda item 17A, I think we have a few people online to present.
Good morning and thank you. My name is Harmony DiFilippo and I'm the budget manager with the DCA Budget Office. I want to thank the board and the executive staff for allowing me to present on agenda item 17A, the board's expenditure projections and fund condition statement. First, I'm going to go over the board's expenditure projections, which was attachment 2 of the materials. So these projections are based on actual data through fiscal month 11. This report includes the 22-23 actual expenditures in the green, as well as your 23-24 budgeted and projected expenditures, which is the blue and orange. As we move to the end of the document, you will see that the board had a beginning base budget of a little over 7.6 million and is projected to spend a total of approximately 6.9 million, creating a reversion to the board's fund of approximately 729,000 with a reversion percentage of 9.5%. The next slide is attachment 3 of your materials. This is the board's fund condition statement. As a reminder, we read this document from top to bottom and left to right. The left column is the board's prior year 22-23 actuals. It shows the board began 22-23 with a beginning balance of 6.887 million and collected 8.31 million in revenue, with 1.8 million from the initial license fees, 6.115 million from license renewals, and 395,000 collected from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The board expended a little over 7 million, which includes 587,000 in direct draws to the fund for statewide pro rata and pension payments. The board closed 22-23 with a reserve balance of 8.27 million or 14.1 months in reserve. For the fiscal year 23-24, the board projects revenues of just over 8.4 million, with 1.794 million projected from initial license fees and a little over 6.1 from renewal fees, and 485,000 from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The board's 23-24 expenditures are based on the governor's budget with FM11 projections at about a little over 7 million between the authorized expenditures and direct draws to the fund, leaving the board with a fund balance of just over 9.8 million or 12.7 months in reserve. The budget office will continue to monitor the board's revenue and expenditures and report back to the board with monthly expenditure projections as we continue to close out this fiscal year 23-24. A few things to know on the board's fund condition. The fund condition is a snapshot in time. One of the main factors driving expenditure increases in future years is a result of personnel service adjustments. These include general salary increases, as well as employee compensation and retirement rate adjustments. The budget office includes a conservative ongoing 3% increase to expenditures on the fund condition statement to account for these incremental adjustments. You will also notice revenue is projected static in the out years. Lastly, I would like to note to the board that any future legislation or unanticipated events could result in the board's need for additional resources, which would create cost pressures on the fund. The budget office will continue to monitor the board's fund condition statement and keep an open line of communication with the board's executive staff for any future needs or expectations. That concludes my presentation. And again, thank you for allowing me to present today. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Harmony. I appreciate you coming in early and doing this. I had a couple of questions. I'm not a financial person, so sometimes on budgets, I read things and I don't know what I'm looking at. So on attachment to page 4, top, the top personal services or
Mhm.
personnel service, I guess. There was we're doing really well. So first of all, I just want to say we are doing incredibly well, and thank you to Jessica and all of the staff and all of the work that's been done on efficiencies and being able to come in under budget year after year. It's been it's been pretty impressive, and to increase our efficiencies in the face of some of the challenges. So this by no means, when I'm asking these questions, implies that I'm not happy with this. So I just want to say that up front. I just wondered, so second line, temporary positions, it looks like it's a lot of money for temporary positions. Can you can you explain that?
Yeah, so
Yes.
our temporary, sorry, go ahead, Harmony.
No, go ahead, Jessica.
Okay.
Sorry.
So our temporary positions, if you may recall from before, we had our DEO position, we had 4 enforcement analyst positions that are all paid out of our blanket. Those I believe are the temporary positions. Is that correct, Harmony?
Yeah, so the positions that are currently there is
They're in
there's a variety of classifications. So there's some analysts and some program technicians.
So
each
on our
depending
org chart where it said the LT, the limited term, right? Harmony, are those considered the temporary?
Yeah, so anyone that their position number ends with the 907, those are all positions, whether they're full-time limited term in the blanket or if they are an hourly employee in the blanket.
Okay.
We also have seasonal clerks that are helping with our intake as well. And all of that is because we are able to because we have extra money in the blanket funds, we're able to subsidize that. But it was only supposed to be temporary, which is why we got a budget change proposal that was reported before to make these positions permanent. So they'll be permanent, are now permanent starting July 1.
Okay, and so that will go into the top line at that point, and so we're going to be budgeting for that. Okay, okay, great. So that was my first question. Thank you. I did look up what an encumbrance is, so I think I understand what an encumbrance is. I was just wondering what the 42,040, this is second line under operating expenses, what that's for. It's for something in the future that we're so next is operating expensive equipment, 5302 printing, and then encumbrance 42,000. Well, the total is 76,000. Yeah, year to date plus encumbrance. Yeah, so it just seemed like a lot for printing, and I didn't know, are we getting a very fancy 3D printer or?
So that there's several categories that are built within the printing category, and one of the main driving factors within that is part of the Breeze printing services that are provided to the board through BIT.
Okay, so that is, so it's separated out from Breeze.
Right. So anything, so if we are printing renewal notices that are sent out, and when we issue a license, printing that as well, those are all part of the printing that we are doing. So it's all included in this.
Mhm.
We are hoping to go away from printing altogether
Mhm.
because a lot of it, as you know, is all online. And so we're hoping to transition away from that soon. So hopefully that'll go down.
And so we are expecting to pay another, like, I guess the encumbrance term is what?
So
Um,
the
yeah.
encumbrance is basically the full contract is encumbered, and then as charges come through, POs and vouchers are deducted against that encumbrance, reducing it, and then creating your year to date plus encumbrance. So at the end of any given fiscal year, um, if that there is a remaining balance as part of that contract, sometimes it's a multiple year contract, and so the funds can be adjusted if a future year's costs are higher or lower. And another option is if funds are not used or needed, then those can potentially be liquidated. So
Okay.
it's just based off of the contract amount we project to that full contract in the event that it is needed.
Okay. Thank you. And then my final question, I believe, is at the next page, the top column, where we're looking at the full budget, adjusted beginning balance. I just wondered, for the 24-25 year, there's quite a jump from 8270 or 8.27 to 9.815. And I just wondered what was that because of the how well we did this year in terms of meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you'll notice at the very bottom of the current year, well, we're in the process of closing out 23-24, but at the very bottom of that 23-24, the
Oh,
fund ends with that 9,815,000. And so that's where you start your next year, is starting with that ending balance from the previous year. So the more revenue that you bring in, the less expenditures, those
okay.
all factor into that ending balance and basically that start of the next fiscal year.
Okay. Well, that's easy.
But that's the fund balance, not the budget.
I see. Okay. So anyway, that is great. Sorry to belabor all of these points. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none. Any questions? There's nobody here in the audience, moderator. So can you open it up to the folks online, please?
Yes, this is the moderator. The Q&A is now open. The instructions are on the screen for your reference. If you're logged in and would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon on the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. It's a question inside of a square, and you type the word comment and the text field, and make sure it's listed to all panelists before you click the send button. At this time, I see no request for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for presenting, Harmony. Okay, moderator, I meant to do this the last time, but I just want to be clear. I'd like to open up public comment in case there is any for all of agenda item 17, A, B, C, D, and E, in case there was somebody who wasn't able to attend yesterday. Can you open up public comment for those items, please?
Yes. The Q&A is now open. Instructions are the screen. Click on the question mark, type comment in the text field, click send. Make sure it goes to all panelists if you're interested in participating in public comment. At this time, I see no requests coming in. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Next up, we are going to be welcoming our esteemed Dr. Nunez. This is agenda item 15 for his update, discussion, and possible action regarding AAVSB. Dr. Nunez, good morning.
Good morning. Are you sure you don't want to go over the sunset review report first?
I didn't hear that. What?
Are you sure you
I-
Oh.
You
No,
don't
we
have
are
to.
eager to hear what you have to say.
All right. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Now I can, yes.
Okay. So, just, Dr. Sullivan didn't go over any of these agenda items yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, agenda item A, we are looking forward to seeing many of you at the AAVSB annual meeting and conference, which is being held in California this year, down in San Diego, September 25th through the 28th. I am particularly looking forward to Dr. Bradbury's traditional state welcome to California speech. That's always enjoyable, and I can't wait to see it. Tuesday is going to be mostly committee meetings. There are some members from California, of course, that are on some of the committees. Wednesday, that's Wednesday is going to be some additional committee meetings and board of directors meetings. There's going to be on Thursday, executive directors summit, sort of pre-conference lectures. The really big show starts on Friday. That is where we have the business session. And that is the opportunity for resolutions to be discussed and nominations and all that fun stuff. There's some really interesting lectures that are going to be given, as you can see on the agenda that's up on the screen right now, on legal cases. I thought that the lecture on veterinarians and cognitive decline is very timely in light of our political environment. But there's also a guest from our international community that is going to be joining us and giving their perspective on regulatory issues in their countries. And it's a time for California to shine, to show them how beautiful our state is and how fantastic our leaders are in the regulatory community. So a good time should be had by all, and I'm really looking forward to it. Dr. Bradbury, are you ready for your presentation?
I was hoping to get some help from you, and I'm developing it. Maybe some
just
stylistic points.
Soar over California is what you need to do. Just show them how beautiful our state is.
I know I was going to just go over the natural wonders, but any photos from your area that are high resolution that can go in PowerPoint would be welcome.
I'll send you pictures from Universal Studios, which is right down the street from me.
Great.
There is a proposed amendment that you'll be voting on. This is a pretty simple amendment in regards to the composition of the Regulatory Policy Committee. They're just changing the members of the Regulatory Policy Committee, the terms of it, from 2 years to 3 years, with the opportunity to be reappointed for an additional 3 years. Mostly because there's quite a learning curve to many of these committees and positions, as you all know, and it was felt that expanding the term limits to 3 years was a wise idea. That can be seen on page 14 of Article 1 of the document, or if you scroll all the way down to 14, you can see that. That's the only change for that. I think it's pretty straightforward, but if anyone has any questions on that, then I'd be happy to attempt to answer them.
It doesn't look like any of us do, so feel free to move on to the next item.
The next item is the nomination committee report. It's not out yet. Unfortunately, the deadline for that to be out is tomorrow.
So Dr. Nunez?
Yes.
Real quick, so actually, I do want to thank the AVSB because I had asked them to if we could provide it, and I know that they were working on some things internally to get it posted, so they don't have to get it posted until the 28th or send out to the member boards, but they actually emailed you and I this morning the nominating packet. So if you don't mind, I was going to read the nominating committee report.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'm actually talking to Jim Penrod right now, and I don't think I got that email. So if
Okay,
you
yeah,
have it,
Nancy Gritman sent it to us, so I just really want to thank her for sending this to us so the board is aware. So,
So-
thank you, Nancy.
Oh, that's fantastic. 'cause
Yeah.
We didn't have it last year and it was, yeah, great.
Okay, so bear with me because I'm actually not in the webcast, so I can't share it, but I'm going to email it. Or I
Is
will
it-
email
is
it to
it-
everybody.
is it the nomination report that I have then from, is it the official one?
It's one that Nancy Gritman sent us this morning at 6:56 a.m.
Okay.
So, and she sent it to us in order for our board to see it because she knew it was on our agenda. Okay.
Okay, what do you have?
All right. So this is the AAVSB's nominating committee report for 2024. This report provides nominee and voting information to the delegates and alternate delegates of the 2024 AAVSB annual meeting and conference, and to the members and executive directors and registrars of the AAVSB member boards in preparation for this year's meeting. The nominating committee. The members of the nominating committee include Roger Redmond, DVM from Ohio. He's the chair of their board. Amy Staten, LVT from Kentucky, William Wright, DVM from Georgia. Each year, the nominating committee is responsible for reviewing the qualifications of the nominees, verifying qualifications, and submitting a ballot to the member boards. The ballot contains the nominees who are eligible and whose information is verified as accurate. Nominee information. With this report, the information on the nominees includes a cover page, bio, and statement from the sponsor on the rationale for the nomination. To learn more about the nominees, separate online video interviews will have been conducted. Please watch for email announcements on the availability to view these videos. Please note there will be no candidate speeches or other election-type activities at the annual meeting. This year, there are multiple nominees for the one open AAVSB veterinarian representative to the ICVA position. No nominees for one of the open director positions for the open nominating committee position and for the open ICVA public member position. Procedures. At the annual meeting, the nominating committee report will be given on Friday, September 27th during the morning session. After the report, nominations from the floor will be accepted for all open positions. Voting will occur on the morning of Saturday, September 28th. The 2024 ballot. Below is the ballot for this year as of July 25th, 2024. For AAVSB Board of Directors, the president-elect, one open position. Tim Kolb is the only individual running for this position. He's a DVM from Ohio. Treasurer, one open position. Amy Hayward, LVT from District of Columbia. Directors, 3 open positions. Jared Granier from Louisiana, Jennifer Pettigrew from Nevada. And then there's one open position. So there's 3 positions, 2 nominees, it looks like.
Wait, what about Michelle? The Kentucky person? What is Michelle Shane, right? I
Yes.
thought she was going to be on there. She's great. We love Michelle.
So
Brought up so many great topics and she's
Yeah, it's the,
Yeah.
uh,
I thought she was
as-
running.
So
random
I,
chair- Right, she's not on the ballot, it seems, right now.
Oh,
so when I got this email, Dr. Nunez, this morning, I was, I'm trying to have productive words. I was shocked, to say the least. I called Michelle because I feel like she's a very strong member. She asks a lot of very good questions. People may not always agree, and just like this board, not always agree. But we encourage engagement, we encourage discussion, because we truly believe that with the more information members have, the better decisions they make. So when I didn't see her on this nomination report, I did call her this morning. So I've been on the phone since 6 this morning. And I asked her, and she didn't provide any information or details, but she said I did submit a letter to the board of directors, which she then forwarded to me. So I'm going to read you the letter so you know what the letter says. And it says, this was sent to the board of directors, stated July 24th. And it says, Dear members of the nominating committee, I regret to inform you that I have been directed not to accept the 2024 nomination submitted by the Kentucky Board of Veterinary Examiners. Therefore, I am formally withdrawing from consideration for re-election to the AAVSB Board of Directors this September. I look forward to future opportunities to serve the association on behalf of member board. Respectfully, Michelle Shane.
wait, what was that first sentence?
Dear members of the nominating
I don't
committee,
understand this. Yeah.
I regret to inform you that I have been directed not to accept the 2024 nomination submitted by the Kentucky Board of Veterinary Examiners.
Okay. So that her board, I guess. Oh,
Board nominated her because it says she's nominated, but someone told her not, they directed her not to take that nomination.
So we don't know who.
We don't
The
know
letter
who
doesn't say
that was. Board nominated her.
okay.
You know that side conversation when you get pulled out into the hallway? Yeah.
Happened.
Well, so that, I mean, that was who we were going to vote. So now
Yeah,
that,
at this point, I don't have any more information to share with you as far as who directed her to withdraw her nomination or not. As more information becomes available, I certainly will, but I don't have anything more to share with you on that. But it does mean that there is an open position that is available for a board of directors, which at this point can be even anyone from California because there will be a call for nominations on the floor.
okay, so, and there's how many positions? There's just one, right? And there's 3 people running, or is there 3
There's
positions?
there's 3 open positions. At this point, 2
2
people
people.
are officially on the ballot.
Okay.
So if no one else is called, then they'll be on the board and there'll be 1 open position. But if one other person is called from the floor, then they'll be on the board.
Okay, so there, and then is there a way to nominate people there?
Yes, I mean, you definitely can have a nomination from the floor during the business session, which I encourage us to do.
And as the delegate, Dr. Bradbury, you are able to vote for and delegate who feel will better serve the the state of California and the board and the purpose of AAVSB.
So would she be open?
I don't, like I said, like
Oh, I guess she can't.
I don't
Okay.
know. All I know is I saw this report and I was surprised. I called her. She didn't give any information other than I submitted this letter.
Okay. Okay.
Can we as a board say that we want to support that, but as a backup, kind of have a plan
Support what?
for her, like, right, but you were saying you would want to talk to her is my point. I was asking, like, I thought I was misunderstanding. I was asking, would you want to talk to her?
She
Even though
She's-
she's saying you don't know what she would do?
she can't, she's withdrawn her nomination. So if she's not,
I'm misunderstanding what
if she's
Dr.
not
Bradbury
on,
was saying then.
Not sure. It was just that she was she seemed like such a valuable member, and I'm not sure.
I mean,
This is confusing, I guess. So it's,
yeah,
I guess we'll wait and see what additional information comes. And then,
Yeah.
it sounds like somebody needs to be nominated, from the floor.
you
So
can always,
that's-
express your support of her prior candidacy. When you're
Okay,
nominating someone else, but she's
okay,
not on the ballot.
yeah, okay. Okay, well,
Bradbury,
yeah.
is it appropriate to just take a couple minutes right now and explain the significance of having someone on the board?
Yeah.
For some of us newcomers? I don't, I think that we probably have a large percentage of people in California that
Well, there's
constitute that, and
there's currently 10 members on the board of directors of AVSB. And as far as representation from the western states, I'm it. West of the Mississippi, there's not a whole lot of representation. So we definitely need, as far as diversity of membership, more members from the West Coast. But I think in the immortal words of Dick Sullivan, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So um, it's a vital organization. It does a lot for our regulatory efforts, and establishing a really good working relationship with the AVSB is definitely in the best interest of the Veterinary Medical Board of California. And so in order to enhance that relationship, I think it's important for us to be represented.
I just wanted to add, so for the ones who aren't as involved with AAVSB, their stated purpose in their bylaws is to aid regulatory boards of veterinary medicine in the protection of the public health and welfare. And then they list a lot of ways of how they do that. And so a lot of times they're making really important national decisions, actually international, because Canada is part of them and they're looking at growing. But they're setting essentially the standard. Even though a lot of times they give disclaimers that we're not setting standards, we're here to assist, which is true. But a lot of times, regardless, people say that they are the national standard. They also assist in various services when it comes to licensing, when it comes to reporting discipline. They assist in helping streamline processes for all the boards. And so I think it's really important to have individuals on the AAVSB board who truly understand and believe in AAVSB's purpose. And I think that there have been some individuals who are concerned, who have raised concerns. I have raised concerns with some of the challenges that we're facing. And we have encouraged more executive officers or executive directors, as they're called, to also get involved and to have a voice. And to share any concerns, because what I find a lot of the times is that there's some executive directors who aren't necessarily comfortable with coming forward and sharing concerns. So they'll go to individuals like me to try to help streamline their processes or share concerns that they're having. And I think it's really important that those individuals feel comfortable going to AAVSB and working through challenges together. They just need to be able to trust AAVSB to help them. I think the more individuals that are on the board that work to understand why AAVSB makes the decisions that they do, and to help try to resolve any kind of challenges that happen, whether or not you agree with them, or whether or not, it's important to ask questions and have open dialogue. And I think that Michelle and Dr. Nunez do a really great job at doing that. It's not always welcomed. Some of the meetings were kind of, and especially the one from the last conference, those heartbreaking watching, because questions don't seem to be welcomed. And it's really, really sad.
Also, there was, just to sort of highlight the implications of some of their actions, they developed some best practices for, in the Model Practice Act that they put out regarding telemedicine, and based on that, we were sued by the SBCA, which went to the California, I think it was our Supreme Court. It was pending. It's been dropped since it got passed in legislation, but they were citing the AAVSB's recommendations as the national standard. So if we're not actively working to, try and at least have a voice heard, or be considered in terms of how their actions may affect our board, then things just happen in a vacuum, and we just have to deal with the consequences. So if we are able to ourselves have a voice, and potentially have other people who are willing to, bring some of these issues to the table, and talk about them, and try and at least discuss them without everything just passing, without any discussion, then we're at risk of being in this position again. So, we've, we recently had this affect us pretty significantly. So that's why we are even reviewing this and spending any time on it at all. Does that make sense?
Your mic's not.
I'll start again. In areas that the board may be concerned in, and things we're looking for the multidisciplinary subcommittees, like unlicensed practices, it would be nice to have the national cooperation, because we don't know how many people from other states lost their licenses, or, just the resources. Seemed like it'd be important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the services that are provided by AAVSB are extremely valuable to our regulatory efforts. Precisely disciplinary actions. If we would like to know if there's been disciplinary actions in other jurisdictions when we're reviewing applications and so forth, then the AAVSB is the place to go to for that. They are limited by jurisdictions participating in their efforts. California is very participatory in sharing our licensing information and disciplinary information. I definitely hope that other jurisdictions follow our lead, but that's a continuing effort by leadership at AAVSB to be a good resource for that, and other things, including examinations, particularly of RBTs and so forth. The
But
other-
we can thank Jessica for that, Dr. Grant, because Jessica goes to these meetings and is very vocal about how we need all of the other boards to participate in sharing their license information and their disciplinary action, because without them, we cannot share state to state. We have no idea. So she is the voice for us, and she for that. And I think that it's very important that we recognize the work that she does at these meetings. It's really important. So she does
Yeah.
fight for that.
The other example I can give is that not all jurisdictions license RBTs in their Practice Act. And AAVSP Board of Directors is very much in favor of all jurisdictions licensing RBTs, and it's something that we're actively promoting to be the law of the land. Not all jurisdictions issue premise permits, hospital inspections, and so forth. Certainly, we can't tell states what to do, but we can definitely promote it as far as the standard for our profession.
That disciplinary piece is very important to know and to understand. Health world, they have what's called the National Practitioners Data Bank, and this is shared nationally. Mandate. Oh, sorry, it's a federal mandate that all healing arts professions in the human, they take any kind of discipline, they have to report it to the National Practitioners Data Bank. Those states can opt into receiving what we call a RAP program. So where they can, something, my mic keeps going.
Yeah, so I mean,
Sorry.
it's a great organization. We do a lot of great things, and as we can see from the nomination report, there are 3 open positions that are wide open: a board of directors position, a member on the nominating committee, and a public member to the AAVSB representative to the ICVA. So when we show up in San Diego, that's a great opportunity to get some nominees on the ballot.
Sorry, so I had to change mics. But in the veterinary world, we don't have that. We don't have the ability to check a national data bank that everybody is required to report to. And so AAVSB offers that, which is really amazing. And unfortunately, only about 50 states or 50% of the states. It says, I guess I'm supposed to stop talking. So we encourage other states to start reporting the discipline, because only good if everybody is reporting. Because what happens is if we take discipline against a licensee, they can go to Nevada. And if Nevada doesn't know about the discipline, they may license them. And vice versa. If Nevada is not reporting their discipline and they come to California, we wouldn't know about it if it's not reported. And so it's a risk to consumers. And so we're really encouraging all the states to report to this database.
Am I to assume that international violations of the Practice Act by practitioners would be unnoticed as well?
Yes.
That's a really good question.
Okay. I hope that helps a little bit. I think for the nominations to the board, there's very specific requirements that they have to be active or recently active board members or executive directors, I believe. So, and I don't think Dr. Nolan was interested, but I guess we'll be seeing on the floor if we can, who we can nominate.
Can you still hear me?
Yes,
Okay, yeah, you have until September, the end of September, to think about it. Um, the Any other questions on the nomination report?
doesn't look like it.
Um, Regional mentorship program. I think Jessica, you have probably more information on what that is.
I do, and hopefully between the two mics, it'll be more successful. Justin, would you mind sharing your screen of the demographic map? So what this was something that we created as part of the Executive Director Advisory Committee. One thing that we worked with AAVSB to do is create this mentorship program for the executive directors in all 63 jurisdictions. And it's to serve several purposes. One, to help any new executive directors who don't know much about the roles, don't know much about AAVSB, to be that point of contact to help, in addition to AAVSB staff, because they're all amazing as well, but to help if they are dealing with issues or if they have questions, we're a quick call away to help with that. And so we divided it up into regions, our committee. And so you'll see, and we're in purple, those are the regions that I have been assigned. And so this recently came out. And so after this, I will be reaching out to all of the executive directors in the region. We'll start having regional meetings with them. And then if we have any concerns or any discussions, we will bring them to the group as a region and work through issues together and really help mentor all of the executive directors. And so you see the various committee members and their assigned region on the map. But this is hopefully to help kind of streamline that communication and help deal with more issues that may be just regional or bring it to the full executive directors to really just be a resource more for the states as well. So it's in addition to what the great work that AAVSB is doing, we created this program to help executive directors as well. There's also some states that are not really active in AAVSB or really know of the services that they provide. And so we're hoping with this mentorship program that if there's those states in our region, we will work with those states to become more engaged and to use the resources that AAVSB provides. So we're hoping that this will help kind of bridge that gap of those who are not really participating, get them at the table and participate.
Is New York participating yet?
New York is,
Oh, great.
and New York,
They weren't before, right?
they were questioning the importance of AAVSB. And I think, so Stephen, he is Mr. Bose from New York. He's the executive director from there, and he actually is on our committee, and he has that region in blue. So they are being really active as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any questions? All right. Next, Dr. Nunez.
The agenda item 15E Practice Act model. Again, what I'd like to say is that the AAVSB is currently reviewing the Practice Act model, specifically in the areas of scope of practice for veterinary technicians and veterinary technologists, which is a huge topic right now, and the appropriate use of opioids. Even though California has had some experience with this Practice Act model in a negative way, I'd like to emphasize again that the official position of the AAVSB is that these are not necessarily promoted as the gold standard. They're promoted as language that various jurisdictions can essentially cut and paste into their Practice Act if they choose to do so. If they choose not to adopt them, or write their own regulations, then obviously they have the right to do so. Um, I am aware that it can be perceived as being the gold standard by various stakeholders, but it's not in any way promoted as such through any documents or official policies of the AVSB. And I'd also like to say that the AVSB does indeed would like to listen and receive feedback. And as you can see, there is a form that can be submitted to do so. So it's a lot of documents and a lot of policies, and I know that there has been some feedback already told to me about areas that California has issues with, and I would encourage you to utilize that form to submit those documents, and that will go back to the uh, to the Regulatory Policy Committee um, to address the concerns. Um, did you want to go through all the different model regulations at this time, or
Well, I
or not?
mean, for me, I think that last time this came out, we didn't have a chance to discuss it or have any feedback from our board. So I wasn't able to vote at the meeting. So I think it is important that we make sure we're all okay with this, or if there are any changes that we would recommend, we talk about it. So yeah, it would be helpful, I think, if we went through at least briefly each one and made sure there wasn't anything concerning.
Okay, so the first one is scope of practice for veterinary technologist.
Trying to find it.
So Justin, the document that you were on page 2, there's a hyperlink to that document. It's the first bullet.
So they have listed their model regulations allowable animal healthcare task that can be performed with immediate supervision, and section 2, direct supervision. That's the document that we're looking at.
Yes.
And then I believe that there are
Why I can't.
3 sections to this. Immediate supervision, direct supervision, and indirect supervision.
Somehow did not. Okay. Dr. Nunez, did you have any concerns that you had with this?
No, this also, Dr. Sullivan is a member of the of this committee, and when I asked him if he had any issues with any of the recommendations, he did not. But again, now is our opportunity to submit our concerns in an official capacity with the forms.
Okay. I will say that under section 1, immediate supervision, I'm alarmed that there is placement of abdominal, thoracic, or percutaneous endoscopic gastrotomy tubes being touted as something veterinary technician would be able to do. I mean, I
Under immediate supervision.
yeah. Is this, I mean, they can't do it in California. That would be a surgical procedure. Is this something that's done in other states?
I'm not familiar with the Practice Act of all the jurisdictions, but I assume that it is allowed in other states.
Is
And-
Dr.
and-
Sullivan on the line?
And again,
Wondering. Okay.
this doesn't mean that if it's not in our Practice Act, it's not in our Practice Act. This is the
No,
model.
no, I know. I'm not, if nobody is, I don't know if anybody's actually doing this in other states. I think to me, I can't imagine that like,
I can find out and report back.
yeah, I mean, if it is, that's one thing, I guess, but I guess I feel like this is, not an appropriate healthcare task. How do you all feel here?
I don't know if Dr. Bennett can be promoted
Yeah, I
to.
share your concerns too. At least this transformed to an equine. I think even an experienced practitioner, gets a little queasy about sticking a chest tube in a standing horse.
I think most general practitioners in small animal, I mean, don't feel comfortable placing chest tubes in dogs and cats, let alone, I mean, it's not something and I know that I perform peg tubes as a specialist. I don't know any general practitioners that perform a peg tube placement. Although I'm sure that there are some. I can tell you that other internists I know who have been trained to do it don't feel comfortable doing it and won't, and will refer to a surgeon, a boarded surgeon, to do this. So I have
Yeah,
grave concerns about this.
I think our chief medical officer has been promoted to a speaker. She may be able to answer that question. Dr. Bennett.
Okay.
This is the moderator. Shall we unmute Dr. Bennett?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Dr. Bennett, I've sent you a request. There you go. You're unmuted.
Hi, thank you for promoting me to be able to speak. So this is an excellent question. I was not there 5 years ago when this was created. But my understanding of the thought process behind it is that this is under immediate supervision, which means that the veterinarian is literally standing right next to the veterinary technician performing this task. And I think it was meant to kind of be a follow-up from number one. So assisting the veterinarian with surgical procedures. For example, if the veterinarian's hands were otherwise focused on something else, then right next to them, they could direct the veterinary technician to place an abdominal tube or thoracic tube.
Okay.
The situation I'm having in my head is perhaps, I don't really know because I wasn't there, but perhaps the patient is very unstable and the thoracic tube is being used to help stabilize them. And so while the veterinarian is focused on other things and is standing right next to the veterinary technician, they say, okay, put in the thoracic tube. But again,
Yeah,
I wasn't there, but we do welcome all of this feedback. This is very helpful. And as I said yesterday, we will be evaluating this entire document.
okay. So maybe adding the word assisting placement of tubes would be, that to me would be a more appropriate verbiage here. Jessica?
Thank you, Dr. Bennett, for being able to speak on this on the spot. I know you probably weren't expecting to do that, so I really appreciate your willingness to jump in here. Just for the member boards, we have in our regulations definitions for direct and indirect supervision. Dr. Bennett, do you happen to have definitions of what immediate, direct, and indirect supervision is according to these model regulations?
Yes. So 150% of my job is these documents, so I'm happy to speak on any of them at any length that you desire. So immediate means the veterinarian is standing within the immediate vicinity of the veterinary technician. Direct supervision means that they are within visual or auditory range. So, or they're in the, I'm sorry, forgive me. Direct supervision means that they are on the premises. Indirect supervision means that they are able to be contacted. They're not on the premises, but they are able to be contacted. I can read you the direct wording if you would like. So immediate supervision means the supervising veterinarian is in the immediate area and within audible and visual range of the patient and the individual treating the patient. Direct supervision means the supervising veterinarian is readily available on the premises where the patient is being treated. And then indirect means a supervising veterinarian need not be on the premises, but has given either written or oral instructions for the treatment of the patient and is readily available for communication.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Bradbury,
Yes.
I agree with you. I read that the same way that she described it, as in, like, I envision it as the doctors like handling something critical and they needed apparently it's all of us, the veterinary technician to handle this, but I agree with you that it's missing the words that it needs, because I don't think it's something, oh yeah, well now I can just place it. That's totally, I don't like that.
Okay. Tito?
Well, my thoughts on this are if VT all right. I, I'm thinking an RVT who has gone through appropriate training, that I would say I would feel comfortable delegating, the procedure.
A chest tube placement?
Like, well, I would actually trust an experienced and trained RVT over an intern.
Have you placed chest tubes
Yes.
and you're very comfortable placing them?
I would say I'm not very comfortable because my experience, in fact, but I've worked with RVTs who's more experienced, who's more comfortable, and actually I am more comfortable working with them because they could technically guide me even if I'm the veterinarian.
Interesting, because to me, some of these procedures are just like anything. The more you do of something, the more competent you become, and you can be trained on a cadaver how to do something, but then actually doing it is a very different thing. And so it's an interesting perspective. I just,
What I'm saying,
I personally wouldn't, I don't think that this is appropriate.
there has to be a, what you call this, like an appropriate qualification for an
Yeah.
RVT. But I would
It would be
say,
like the neutering thing, in my opinion. In fact, I think neutering would
But
be
again, this
less
is as-
invasive and dangerous than
as
these.
Dr. Bennett has said, this is within immediate supervision. So the veterinarian is there. It's not like you're delegating it with like, okay, and then the veterinarian is out of range. I'm saying that this is something that is possible, but making sure that the technician or the veterinary technician is appropriately trained and has the competence established by the supervising veterinarian.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's part of my point too on this is, do we need to even put that in? Because it's like a license to go on and not be supervised, when at the present time, if it was a horse, you would have a technician assisting you just as part of the procedure, where somebody's got the ultrasound probe on, and somebody else has opened the packs and putting it in. It's not, that's the way it's done right now. And I don't think that's outside the law. You don't have to put it in there, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you're having somebody scrub in with you.
I guess I agree. I think that you're right. Now that you mention it, why we would just sit with number one, assisting the veterinarian with surgical procedures, and these fall under that umbrella. So I guess we would
Yeah, which
just
would
removing
include
number
the
2.
chest tubes or whatever.
Right. That doesn't, I mean, that's because I have them assist me with PEG 2 placement right now, but it's a surgical procedure in my mind, and they're allowed to do that, assisting,
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
up to the veterinarian to make sure the person who's helping
Trained
you
and-
is
Yeah.
trained and understand, but,
Yeah.
and they do get very slick at it.
Yeah.
but
So why do we
still-
need to have anything? We don't need to, we don't need to be so specific.
Just remove
Yeah,
number
just-
2.
That's
Just
what I feel.
remove number 2.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
we're not listing out every surgery that they can assist with. We're
right.
not listing out every procedure.
And so how open will they be to these suggestions if we're making them, Dr. Bennett? Is she still there, Dr. Nunez? Oh, there's Solar
I-
Storms.
I'm still here.
Hi,
I don't- I'm,
your picture isn't.
yeah, I'm,
We're not hearing you.
um, I'm still here.
Ah, there you are.
And yeah, I just, as far as how receptive they are, I mean, I can tell you that they will listen to feedback. And it's still hasn't been officially adopted as the official policy. So
Okay.
they're currently in the listening stage of it all. So now is the
Great.
time to express our concerns.
I can, I was taken off mute if it's okay.
Yeah,
Sorry,
please.
I was muted. Now I'm not muted.
It's okay.
So yes, they are very receptive. As I talked about a little bit yesterday, this is just the initial research phase. So we're collecting feedback from our member boards via the form. So you can fill out as many comments as you'd like in that form, just reference the line number. And then I personally, on my end, am gathering all of that feedback and relaying all the feedback directly back to the committee. So then they're going to take all of this feedback into consideration as they revise these. They'll get a first draft. That draft will then go back out to the member boards for a 120-day commentary period. And same process, so you'll be able, if we didn't address all of your concerns, you'll be able to reiterate them again. And then the regulatory policy committee will then again take all of that feedback and create a final document. So I can promise you that we will consider all feedback that has been given.
Thank you so much. So I think are you taking notes?
Yeah, so what we'll do, similar to when we're talking about legislation, when we're providing feedback, the board can take an action and to send a letter, and the executive committee sends that letter to address all of the concerns or feedback that we provide.
I think there's a form is what Dr. Nunez said.
There is a form, and we can
Okay.
submit it on that. too.
Okay, so but are you taking notes for what we're talking about?
It'll
Okay.
be, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Because I'm just talking. Okay, great. So are you, yeah,
I had a concern, maybe I missed it, but the area of imaging, CT exams and ultrasound and getting x-rays taken, it didn't seem like it was in here. And that's a major part of what a technician does in an equine referral hospital for sure. I mean, and more, there's more large CT units and they're run by the technicians are in charge of it. And it doesn't seem
so maybe
things that need
put
to
a
be
note
added
about
here saying that.
that they are able to perform
Yeah,
this,
right.
since they're saying some other very basic things in here.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, on indirect supervision, it does have imaging, including but not limited to. Page 2, line 44, number 3.
okay.
Does that cover what you're looking for, Dr. Grant?
Imaging, including but not limited to radiography, ultrasonography, computed
Yeah,
tomography.
I'm sorry, that was my error in not noticing that.
No, I just want to make sure that it's covering what you're looking for.
Basically it is, yes.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, I had one other concern on this, which was page 1, number 7, for the placement of tubes, including but not limited to gastric, nasogastric, and nasoesophageal, which I think nasogastric and nasoesophageal are placed frequently by technicians. But a gastric would be a surgical placement, and this does not take like an esophageal feeding tube, which is another surgery. So I feel like maybe adding non-surgical placement of tubes and removing the gastric would be helpful in.
But are they saying stomach tube as in like what kind of
Uh,
stomach tube are they saying,
Oh, I
right?
see. Yeah, yeah.
Because
So
read that
like,
differently. Are they trochrizing? What are they
yes,
doing?
an orogastric,
Right.
or when
How are
they're,
you reading that? Because I'm not reading it that way at all.
so just non-surgical might be the way to put
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Because I don't read it the same way you read that.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying this doesn't have a limitation. So they could place an esophagostomy tube. That's a surgical placement with a
Right.
risk of cutting the
Right.
esophagus wide open or going through a carotid artery or all of those
Yeah.
things.
And
which-
as soon as you said it, I was like, I know where she's going with this, but I'm reading
Yeah.
it differently.
So perhaps the non-surgical placement of tubes would be a way of clarifying that. Do technicians place orogastric tubes for like horses or nasogastric for horses to try and decompress them?
It would be under immediate supervision. I mean, you would not have a technician go out and say, pass the stomach tube and give this horse a bucket of oil. I mean, that's
Yeah,
what a lot
Right.
of disasters happen that way. And
Right.
it happens all the time. Even house officers and whatnot are supervised pretty,
right.
yeah.
I feel the same way about placing a gastric tube in a dog with bloat. Like you can do a lot of damage, but that's still direct supervision, I guess.
Yeah.
And
So just to explain some of this, Patrick, to you. So dog comes in, it's usually very common in emergency. Dog is they're bloated. They just have a lot of air in the stomach,
their stomach's twisted.
twists. And it happens to a lot of larger breeds that are deep chested dogs. And we have to usually get air out of their stomach. And so we put a tube down, a wide tube down into their stomach and through their throat. And we basically, it's called trocherizing. We're getting that air out so that we can
I'm
then.
sorry, it's not trocherizing.
I'm sorry, trocherizing is going in here.
Yeah.
Trocherizing is getting the air out. I do it all the time to my dog.
I know.
Don't bring that up. She knows he's a mess. We get the stomach, the air out, and then we are able to go in and do surgery so that we can tack the stomach down. Trocherizing is actually getting the air out through the abdomen and another way we poke it.
The challenge is though that the stomach is actually twisted. So you
Right.
have to get through that twist and you can tear the stomach when
Yes.
you're doing that, which would be something that would be life and it would be very difficult to correct surgically. I mean, it could be corrected, but that's a very, the place that doesn't often heal well. And you would, it has a risk of a life-threatening complication. A lot of things that are done so I just so that might be this is a broad wording here. Any thoughts, Dr. Nunez?
And then I don't know if we want to explain the other two types of.
While we're waiting for him to come back online, a nasogastric tube and a nasoesophageal tube, that's actually, they go through the nose, which has a communication with the back of the throat, and they can put a small tube into through that into the esophagus or stomach to either decompress the stomach or provide nutrition. So a liquid diet can go through there. The risk of that happening, of doing that, is that you go into the lungs instead of the esophagus as it's passing, since both tubes are right at the back of the throat. That's happened to me personally. So, you have to check for that. There's, thankfully, there's ways to know that's happened. If you do some follow-up checks like x-rays and things like that, but it can happen. And if it does happen and it's not identified, it also can be a life-ending situation, because the food goes into the lungs instead of the stomach or esophagus. Can also puncture the lungs and cause air to leak from the lungs and cause an acute crisis. So they're not, I see them being done all the time as if it's not a big deal. And usually it's done successfully, but I don't think that when I go to places that RVTs are doing these procedures, they don't seem to be as scared as I would be. Or I should say, concerned that there might, similar to cysticentesis. I think they don't realize necessarily the risks that come along with some of these more invasive procedures. So there's concerns when we're, for me, when we're putting this as a direct supervision. That means the doctor's not, there watching, and then it's a blanket statement of placement of tubes. There's a lot of different tubes that can go in different places that have differing levels of risks.
And not only that, there's a tremendous risk to the person trying to do that too. It's one thing to have a 30-pound dog perhaps, but a 1,200-pound horse is in violent pain, throwing themselves around, striking, rearing at you. To sick a technician in there, just go ahead and do that while I take this phone call. I'll be watching you. There's a lot of decisions have to be made, how much sedation and all that too. So it's a very direct, but they can't be helping you passing the tube and sedating and restraining the animal. But I think it's up to the veterinarian.
Dr. Nunez,
Yes, I'm here.
any thoughts?
I mean, I think that they're all very valid, important points, and submitted on the form. The policy committee is going to be very receptive to all this feedback, and it's going to create a better final product.
Great. And
You'll have to excuse me. I'm sort of moving to a different location right now, but I'm.
oh,
Yeah,
that's okay.
you just can't see me right now.
Yeah, and I've always wondered why cysticentesis was allowed, but other things were not allowed in terms of fluid aspiration. It's funny, I feel more comfortable with abdominocentesis than thoracocentesis. And then fluid aspiration from a body cavity or organ. What about pericardiocentesis? I guess it's direct supervision. So if a veterinarian didn't direct them to do it, and it would be up to the veterinarian. But I think that these are just some broad things that when once we go down this broad path, it concerns me that it's, it would allow, we're trying to protect the consumers here in California. If they're like, well, the national standards say that this is okay, we're gonna have some challenges. So, Jessica?
No, I
Oh, I thought you were. What do you think about a broad statement of fluid aspiration from a body cavity or organ?
Well, I think it needs to be supervised directly. I can see that, just as we talked about before, that the veterinarian's got the ultrasound probe on it and someone else you block, and then the technician may be inserting the tube in there, you know, a little bit more sort of thing. But I think it's got to be very direct. I don't think from another room or.
So would we possibly recommend moving? It's terrible, I need glasses. Number 10, to immediate supervision, and
No, I have a problem with moving that because cystocentesis that
no, and then
that's.
can I finish what I'm
sorry,
saying?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's okay. Move number 10 with the exception of cystocentesis, which is what I was going to say.
How do you differentiate that though?
Well, you do. Cystocentesis is under direct supervision. Fluid aspiration from any other body cavity or organ would be under immediate supervision. I think that there's room for that.
I mean, I agree that I agree that those are.
Or we just remove fluid aspiration from a body cavity or organ
How do you, yeah, and I
and
mean,
put cystocentesis as an option
can
for.
we just not give examples?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
I think we're kind of like going into the weeds of this stuff because I feel like these are when you say this is the scope of practice, the responsibility is still falls on the veterinarian who is directing all of this stuff to be done. Now, I feel like, these are just examples of tasks that can be delegated, but of course, it falls upon the veterinarian to ensure the competence of the technician that they're going to delegate these tasks to. So I feel like I understand the concern for the risks. Oh, that falls under the veterinarian, because if you're not confident that you're working with a technician who is competent, or who is not aware of the risk, then you be there, you be beside them, or you do it yourself. So I just think that, you can look at it as a range. Are we going to the extreme end of the spectrum where all of these risks need to be like, protected in everything? Or you're actually creating just the opportunity to be able to define what a competent veterinary technician can do.
We're micromanaging. That's what we're looking at this and then we're micromanaging everything. And I agree with Dr. Solicito because we're saying, we're getting into the weeds like we did yesterday in that let's not say what somebody can or can't do until they know what they're competent of doing, and let the veterinarian decide, because they're the ones that need to be able to determine what they can or can't do.
So I would be all on board for this, except that we have an active lobbying public who have been trying to expand RVT duties to perform surgery. And again, this is,
Can I,
yes.
can I say something here real quick? I actually thought that this portion was going to start at 9 a.m. and I have to get off the line now because I have a client waiting for me. So again, I know you could go over the policies, and I think Dr. Bennett will be able to stay on the line to answer specific questions. And then you have the form to be able to submit our concerns to them. And you have my assurance that AVSP is going to be open to feedback. And again, it's model regulation. I know we've had some experience with that, but it's not It's not telling this board how we should practice. I love this board so much with your thoughtful consideration into all the details of regulation, and I welcome it. I encourage it. Be aware that we certainly can't tell. I know you asked what other regulatory bodies are doing. It's been my experience with this board that um, we do our own thing and we don't necessarily go with what other jurisdictions are doing. We're doing what we feel is best for our consumers in our state. But at the same time, we certainly can't tell other jurisdictions how to practice veterinary medicines in their states. But I am embarrassed to say that I have to sign off now.
That's fine. Thank you for your time, Dr. Nunez. We'll see you in September.
Dr. News, I really
Okay.
just want to really thank you for all of the work that you're doing and all of the questions that you are bringing to AVSB and your willingness to continue in dialogues. And I just really want to thank you for all of the great work you're doing.
Oh, you're very welcome. You didn't even notice that I drove to work and I'm now at my office during the course of this call. Hope you found that
Well,
impressive.
thank you, and I'm sorry that I didn't realize, the timing. We could have switched that around and probably should have checked. So thank you.
That's okay. We'll be in touch.
Good day.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have one opinion, which is that we have an opportunity to help with this in a way that that would be as clear as possible without it being too, because to me this is pretty specific, and we're talking about um, just putting some assurances in, but there's two members of the board that feel differently. And it's a 5-member board. So before going into the weeds any further, if 3 of us feel one way or the other, I don't know. Dr. Grant and Mr. Espinoza, I don't know how you feel about continuing on trying to word this and making, are we too much in the weeds?
Yeah, I feel that we're going really deep into the weeds, and by doing that, it's like we're giving license for people to do things. It's better off to be general about it and leave it up to the veterinarian who's hired these people to say, you're ready for this job or not,
So you're okay with leaving it the way it is for the placement of tubes? Or no, the
Fluid
well, that
aspiration.
one
Fluid
specific thing, I
aspiration.
feel it should be under, direct supervision for
the
sure.
fluid aspiration?
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Yeah, the
so
same, yeah.
but that would be direct or immediate supervision. Direct is there in the other office. They could be in the office, like somewhere else, but it's up to the veterinarian to decide
I
whether
think
they
it's up
need
to
to
the
be there.
veterinarian to decide, yeah.
Well, we can leave that there for the fluid aspiration. Since, like I said, I do get into the weeds. So, okay. Is there any other concerns on this document? Yeah.
I don't have any further concerns, but in terms of where the weeds are very low for me because this is a lot of information. So I'm relying upon those of you who have the expertise in terms of the debate. I understand the difficulty in reaching some kind of consensus on where we are now, but it's I don't know. Is there a pending deadline that we need to get this feedback back to who's ever soliciting the feedback by? Because I don't know that we're going to be able to accomplish that in light of kind of the input that as we're going through all of these. So is there?
Yeah, the deadline is August 26th.
And this is the only opportunity to do that before that. And I mean, there was some unanswered questions with respect to how do other jurisdictions, what do they do? I mean, I think that would be enlightening for me. I don't think we're going to have that information now, but I think where we are now is we're getting bogged down as we go through each one of these. If they're, for example, like fluid aspiration from a body cavity organ, do we need to give those specific examples? Because it seems like that's where a lot of the disagreement is, unless we can just say, are there more general language that we're comfortable with, and maybe make those as the suggestions. But as we, debate every specific procedure, I think we're going to get bogged down.
Okay, I appreciate that feedback. Yeah, the one thing for me on that fluid aspiration was really the pericarditis. But I'm happy to move on from there. So I think we've gotten through this document then. Tara.
I'm on page 2, section 3, indirect supervision, lines 41 and 42. This document would authorize RVTs to perform drug preparation. And I'm a little concerned that that would include compounded drug preparations, which right now this board has differentiated between bulk and non-bulk substances. Our California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 2036, specifies that an RVT is authorized to perform under direct supervision drug compounding from bulk substances. That's under subsection B, paragraph 5. And then under indirect supervision, an RVT can perform drug compounding of non-bulk substances. I recognize that this provision does say unless prohibited by government regulation, but I would say that this is an RVT, and this board had to, go through and figure out what level of comfort this board had with an RVT performing these drug compounds. So I don't know off the top of my head whether federal law provides direction at this level, but this board has determined that there should be a different level of supervision for bulk or non-bulk substances, drug compounding. So I just wanted to raise that issue for your consideration, and maybe it's just a comment to the AAVSB, to take a look at this, and maybe this just needs a little bit more clarification with respect to drug compounding.
Okay. Maybe we'll just make that comment in our notes.
Yeah, if there's a consensus from the board to include that, because right now we have a consensus to recommend to remove item 2 under section 1, lines 13 and 14, and then add non-surgical on page 1, item 7, line 29. So if there's also a consensus to address Tara's concern, then we can include that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I see that it says unless prohibited. I don't think that there's any chance of separating it out to bulk and non-bulk in these guidelines, but it might be nice just to make them aware of our regulations so that they
No.
so that they know. Does that sound good? Okay. Are we good with those changes or recommendations? Yeah, okay. Do we need a motion for that, or I don't think so?
I think we're good.
Okay, all right. So then moving on to the next item, which is, sorry. Jessica, will you help me?
Yeah, the AABSB model regulations appropriate use of opioids, numbered lines. And so if you, I don't know if it's just another moderator, if you go back to the posted document, it's the second bullet on the second page. Yep, perfect, thank you.
Okay. So, were you guys able to read through all of these already beforehand? Okay. Does anybody have any concerns? Okay. I guess, yeah, my major concerns are that this is very prescriptive. And I think I felt like overly cumbersome, particularly, like in, item G, uh, the, it's very prescriptive. I know that, and the should be, reevaluated. I guess it has every X months, so you could put whatever you want there, although we don't know what they're going to put there. There are many patients like with chronic bronchitis, collapsing trachea that are on opioid. Yes.
When you say prescriptive, my question was, because I don't disagree with that, but my question is it much different than like human physicians? Because I
Well-
know they've gotten like a lot of directions that like this is the way you have to follow. So I'm asking if you know any, because I know they've just been given a lot of directions and this is how they have to do it. So I'm just kind of curious if it has.
What we might want to do if, because I know Dr. Venedis is still there, moderator, if we don't mind, if we can promote Dr. Bennett to panelists, and that way we can see her as well and openly have the dialogue. But I would just ask Dr. Bennett for her thoughts because she was involved in all of these conversations. And then also Dr. Bennett, apologies for putting you on the spot again, but throughout this document, Dr. Bradbury had mentioned the XX day supply, XX day prescription. Are there thoughts that AVSB will eventually put days in, or was the intention to leave that up to the individual boards to decide? I'm just curious.
Yes, so thank you. That's exactly what it means, the second. So whenever the Regulatory Policy Committee determines that it is not up to within the scope of the model regulation to define the time period, but they would wish to have language in there for the boards to say, oh, maybe we should have something like this. They put XX, but that means that forevermore it will be an undefined time period. In my knowledge, I don't know of any time periods. Maybe there's just one or two examples in the PAM of when we actually do put in time periods.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have, I mean, I felt like the number G, there was a lot of information required, but I don't have any other comments or issues. Anybody else? Okay. All right, so moving on to the next one.
The next one is the introductory language, PAM. I don't know why it says numbered lines, but it says numbered lines.
That just means that that's a note for me to say that that's a document with the numbered lines on it.
Okay, sorry.
Mine didn't have numbered lines, just oddly. Okay. It had it on the title, but just everybody's saying line such and such. And I'm like, I have a PDF that I downloaded. So I don't know what these lines are. Is the introduction page or are we now? Okay.
My mic keeps going in and out. Introductory language for the PAM.
And I can provide background on why we are asking input on this and the model regulations introductory language. The point of these two things, the reason why we're asking for feedback from the boards is because we want your all opinion on how we can make sure that it is very, very clear that these model documents are just for references purposes only, and that it is not to compel the boards to do what we are saying within the model regulations. So I think this might be something that you can contribute greatly to. We just want to make it clear that this is a resource to use if needed. We are not telling you that you have to use this resource.
Okay, that makes sense. So this is to try and help prevent what happened with our SPCA case.
1000%. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I appreciate that. I didn't have any input on this document. Anybody else? Jessica, you feel like it's helpful? Okay, great. Well, we appreciate that. We really appreciate that. So thank you, Dr. Bennett. Okay, next.
The introductory language for the model regulations.
And that was presented for the same reason. Or anything else. I mean, if you have any other feedback, we're happy to hear it.
No, I think that was fine. And then the PAM sections for review was,
And the reason for that is as we have currently, I think, 6 new model regulations in process right now. As I said, it's 150% of my time. And we've pulled sections from the PAM that may relate to those model regulations. So these are just some sections that may or may not relate, and we're looking at feedback to review these PAM sections as we're reviewing and creating new model regulations.
okay, thank you. So in section 105, I don't have the numbered lines, I'm sorry. And if I go to that thing, I won't have my comments and I don't have another screen.
It's
So,
page 1, starting on line 26.
okay, so number 1, I guess the including complementary and alternative therapies, I just wondered if we wanted that potentially integrative therapies might be a better term for that. So that's nice and easy. Then the next page,
I'm sorry, where are you looking?
s-
And you want that changed to what?
or just integrative instead of complementary and alternative therapies,
Okay.
number 1. Okay. And then on page 3, oh no, we'll skip that. Yeah, it is page 3, sorry. G, I don't know what line. It says an animal shelter employee or volunteer. Do we have, is it appropriate for volunteers to be providing euthanasia? So that seemed like a big departure from, for an exception. Yes.
Well, I don't know how other shelter organizations function, but I don't know if they're referring to veterinarians or veterinary technicians who volunteer at the shelters. So I think this needs to be well defined and not just put in as broadly as volunteer, because any lay volunteer should not be able to just perform euthanasia.
Dr. Bennett, were there discussions on this one? We're looking at section 108, special provisions, and letter G, where it says an animal shelter employee or volunteer who provides care and performs euthanasia.
So unfortunately, this was one of those that was written well before my time. Because my suspicion, though, because it's in general provisions, that this is someone who is exempt from being a veterinarian to perform these tasks. So that feedback would be very welcome to provide. I don't know the initial conversations behind it, unfortunately, but please do provide that feedback.
Okay, so what we'd like is for that to be more well-defined as a veterinarian or veterinary.
Or a certified, because I like not just any employee, I mean, the model practice should be, like here in California, we do certify our employees to be euthanasia technicians.
What this may also refer to is, so a veterinarian from another jurisdiction who is not licensed within that jurisdiction is not a veterinarian, according to this act. So it may refer to if it was a natural disaster or something and a volunteer veterinarian came into that jurisdiction. That may also be what it's referring to, but I do agree that this is a very vague statement.
Then may I suggest that there should be language about disaster situations?
We do have a declared emergency section that came later. So this may have been created and then, you know how regulations and statutes are, this may have been created asynchronously. So we can definitely take a look at that and see if we could figure out the original intent.
Do you have enough, Jessica, for comment?
Yeah, I think overall it sounds like we're concerned about unlicensed practice and untrained individuals performing euthanasia. So I think we can share that.
Okay. And then same section I, any person or that person's employee who's subject to the jurisdiction's anti-cruelty laws treats animals belonging to that person, providing that ownership is not transferred for the purpose of circumventing this act. We are currently concerned about that in our own state. I believe that this whole special provision that we have has been abused somewhat, and we're trying to tighten that up here. So how does that compare with what we are looking to do with our sunset?
I'm so sorry. I was typing as you were reading the other one from the comment from the last one. Which section are you in?
I.
I.
It's about ownership and people that are people's employees providing care, that they're exempt from the act. You know how
I don't.
you don't have, isn't that something that we're working on right now?
Yeah, no, I know what we're working on is that we're looking at addressing the issue for the exemption that the ownership or the bona fide owner, employees of the owner, but
That's what this is saying too. This is an exemption for any person or that person's employee who treats animals belonging to that person.
Yeah.
So I just was concerned that it was, maybe
Oh, because
this is an
all of
exemption.
108 are the exemptions.
Correct.
Sorry, that took me a second.
It's okay.
Yes, I think that would be a concern, and I think we could share that concern with and provide examples of what we've seen happen with this specific exemption.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody have any issues with that? Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to let Dr. Bennett know a little bit of history of that one, Dr. Bennett, because you might not even be aware. We have something similar where we have a current exemption in our Practice Act for owners or bona fide employees of the owners. And the original intent was for ranchers and their employees to be able to provide certain services. And what we found is that it's been used as a loophole, and a lot of the unintended consequences we have are unlicensed individuals who should not be are practicing on animals and doing surgical procedures and causing a lot of harm and in a lot of instances death of animal patients. But because they were owners or they were the bona fide employees of owners, they were exempt from the act. So having this really broad language for a very specific purpose ended up having a lot of unintentional consequences.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, section 213, powers and responsibilities. And I'm, I think this, because it is a model practice act and not, it doesn't have to be followed, this may be fine. The A, 5 and 6, the creation of a Bill of Rights, I thought that was, you know, a lot for the board to do, but I don't know that that's that important to, pick your battles kind of thing. And then number 6, the approval of degree programs of schools and colleges. I guess, that probably isn't an issue if we're not doing it. So I don't know that we have to worry about that. Jessica, do you see any issues with that?
No.
Okay. And then I think the other big thing I had was under section 309, registration of veterinary facilities. This is on page 8. A5, that there was the premise has to register with the board and give all identities of licensees employed by or affiliated with the veterinary facility. And I just thought, wow, that is ever changing. And so premises are supposed to be constantly updating the board on their licensees, and what kind of staff do we need to keep up with that? And I don't know that that was well thought out. And so I just thought it might be good to comment on how challenging that would be for people, but not too worried about that either. I don't think that's going to make or break our processes. Any thoughts?
I can tell you, we do not want that information that as far as process wise. And again, so we can, like Dr. Vanessa said, we can take it or leave it because this is just there for our assistance. But I would never recommend that we do this. That
Right.
would be an implementation nightmare with our volume.
Well, and I was just wondering if providing a little bit of feedback of what that would be might be helpful, because other boards may take this on not realizing it. I don't know. But yeah.
Dr. Bennett, do you happen to have any
Mhm.
history of why you would want why boards would benefit from the identities of all licensees employed or affiliated with the facility?
Yes, so this one I was there for. So this one was created specifically to complement our the 2 model regulations that we passed last year in reference to telemedicine. So what we did last year was we created a rule, because what the goal for the model regulations dealing with telemedicine and the establishment of VCPR was to put in what we consider to be safer bumpers for the use of telemedicine and practicing establishing a VCPR through electronic means. And again, I just want to reiterate, this was just a resource to use if needed. It was not us telling anybody how to do it. But one of the bumpers we created was that if you practice telemedicine and a patient is within a certain jurisdiction, then you need to be affiliated with a registered facility within that same jurisdiction. So that would be allowing the telemedicine practitioner to refer that patient to a brick and mortar facility within that jurisdiction if needed, but then also as an attempt to try to curb pill mills or other concerns with telemedicine. So because we linked the practice of telemedicine within a certain state to a facility within that certain state, we had to include this as a way that the facility was able to verify and track that, yes, we can confirm that this practitioner is affiliated with us. We have a relationship. And that's why it was intended. So it's a little convoluted. And I hear what you're saying about the complications and the paperwork associated with it.
I'm curious if was any discussion, because now understanding the intent, and I think that's beneficial for the consumer at the end of the day, for them to know what facility the person that they're talking through the video is affiliated with. But was there any discussion about potentially requiring that veterinarian or that facility to list potentially on their website or any of their materials who is affiliated with them, and then that burden falls to them to maintain, versus having the board have to maintain that information? Because every time you have someone change, you're then having them go to the board to do that maintaining, which to me would be we would not be able to do it.
Yeah, and perhaps perhaps the wording is not as specific for what we are intending. So we were thinking at the time that a facility, at the time of registration or renewal, the applicant for registration shall bear the burden of telling the board that they actually have to provide that list to the board. I don't think it was our intention that the board should maintain that list.
So, and I think I still think that that's a lot of work, but if the intention at the end of the day was for the consumer to know that this person is affiliated with this facility, providing it to the board still doesn't get us there, right? Because it's just to the board, and then we're not then sharing that out for consumers. And so maybe having the requirement on the licensees, on the facilities, to list who they're affiliated with that's providing the telemedicine would provide that direct source to the licensee. To the consumers.
That's really great feedback. We are reviewing all of our documents, our living documents. So we will be reviewing those model regulations in about 3 years. So, but that's really great feedback. I'll see if we can somehow change that in this specific section as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bennett. You're being very patient with us. I appreciate it.
This is great. No, you're bringing up things that we didn't think about.
We do go into the weeds here. Sorry, folks. Okay, so this on the same note, next page. This is under
I like the intent of what they're saying, and so because it's important for the consumer with telemedicine. So I think that's important that we get that in there somehow.
So this is sort of the same thing. So, but this is under C, which was on that page, but going down to 3 and then IV 4. It also says that they recommend the veterinary facility registrant and its veterinary manager would be providing written notification to the board of changes in the identities of licensees employed by or affiliated with a veterinary facility.
Yeah, great point.
So we have it in 2 kind of places. So that just is a lot. Okay.
That's really great feedback.
Awesome.
Dr. Bradbury, I know without getting into the weeds, but it is a very distinct possibility that there are veterinarians who tell clients that they are associated with a practice in order to build up their reputation. And the practice owners don't even know about it. And we had one veterinarian came around and will look at x-rays and stuff from other clients. So it's not really what in the weeds it's being done.
Yeah, I think this is
Hubris.
different. This is sort of just a requirement that would require, I mean, I guess you could prove that they weren't associated with it with this, but you can imagine every time an RVT leaves and every time a veterinarian comes and goes that the hospital has to report that, would be onerous on the hospitals, but then overwhelming on the board.
But I mean, to get to your concern, it would be another requirement for premises, like we have all of our minimum standards that they have to do. So the requirement would be to post any licensees that are affiliated with them to provide the telemedicine services. That way the consumers could see, and they couldn't just say like, oh, I'm affiliated, but then not have it on the premise. So it would have that tie to where the owners would know who, and the consumers would know who is affiliated with that premise.
So one of the things that one of the model regs that we're working on is minimum standards for facilities as well. So that could be something that we can consider as we build that document as well. And maybe moving this over there in different wording though.
Great. Okay, moving on on my end, we are now on page 10, section 401. I am very concerned with A6, any act involving moral turpitude or immorality. I just, that to me is so
Yeah.
subjective.
So I do know there are a number of states who have something very similar to this language. And the more discussions that are happening in these conferences and with the ED sessions, I think that there is, from what I've seen, a desire to get away from this language. We do not have it, nor will we ever want it. It's very subjective. I think that can be incredibly concerning. If we ever tried this, we would get sued a million times. Yeah, but it's very subjective. Who determines who is moral and who is not? I think that's very concerning language.
Yeah, and the other thing is if a licensee is applying here and has a discipline based on this in another state, we would have a very difficult time.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so that's a great point because a lot of states like us have the authority to take action based on another state's action. And what would happen if we only saw this and this is what they were in violation of, or this is what was cited, we would get the underlying acts to find out what specifically was done. And then we make that analysis of if what they did here would constitute discipline here, then we would take that action. But I would suggest that perhaps instead of the moral turpitude or immorality, really think of what is it that you're specifically looking to address. What is the concern that you can be more specific with and not leave this very subjective language? What objective language can you replace it with? So we have various ways to take action. So if there were convictions of crimes, that we have guidelines of what we look at for convictions. So if we're worried about fraud or deceit, convictions of that way, if there's convictions of any crime, we can weigh that to decide whether to take action, but leaving this very subjective language. Any subjective language, I think, should be removed. It should be very objective.
Thank you for this.
Is the concern about the generality is the phrase moral turpitude or the phrase immorality? Because the phrase moral turpitude has a very specific meaning within California law, and from a criminal law aspect, any witness that testifies in a case, whether you're a civilian or a peace officer, the issue, you can be impeached, your credibility can be impeached with an act of moral turpitude. So that case law is very well. I don't know if that was the concern of the phrase immorality, which.
Yeah, for me, it was both, but I didn't know there was a legal definition. So that's really helpful. So if there is a legal definition, I think that perhaps is a reasonable thing to keep in there. The immorality maybe is a more subjective term then. Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there might be other states that use immorality as that term instead of moral turpitude. In California, that's the term that's used. And it does have a lot of legal weight, and you can be, deported if you're here on a visa for a crime of moral turpitude or an act, which could be theft, a petty theft.
Building on that, while California may have its own definition, it will be difficult for board staff to research all of the definitions in other states if someone is has administrative discipline against their license in those other states for a moral turpitude issue that is not how we define it in California, but the fact that the evidentiary or administrative discipline exists by itself would be a problem. So it seems to me that you're correct in saying that it may be beneficial to better define what the actual misconduct is rather than having a subjective disqualifier through moral turpitude or immorality. And, it's actually listed better under the other sections, like conviction of a felony in California, you can be disciplined for conviction of a misdemeanor if it's within 7 years, or a felony. So, it looks like maybe some of these other items could be broadened up a little bit that may include the moral turpitude and immorality that some of the other states might be including under that phrasing, but also unprofessional conduct, that's number one, as determined by the board. That's where you get that really, better objective list under one. So it really seems that number 6 could be removed because effectively that may be covered under, objective standards under the other items.
Were there any definitions for immorality? Pat, that you're aware of?
Not that we use. We don't use that subjective term like immorality.
Dr. Van, are you aware of any definitions for moral turpitude from the other states?
Not that I'm aware of, but this is definitely a question that we can bring up and ask our legal counsel, Dale and Amy, and see what they think.
Great. I think that would be great. We'd appreciate that.
I guess I'm struggling to come up with something that would be considered moral turpitude or immorality that wouldn't also be a felony or other crime, right?
Right. So it's kind of duplicative if that's the case. It's sort of. Okay.
I agree with Tara, and that's what I was going to say is that why not just put it into the unprofessional conduct and put it in,
Right.
why would we not just label it there instead? Or the other, it already falls into the things, like you said, it's duplicative.
I think she's gonna, well, they'll talk about it and we'll
Yeah.
get back to it. So that
Yeah,
sounds.
no, that's what I'm saying.
that
I
sounds
just think
good.
it's,
Okay, and then now on page 12, B. And I may be misreading some of this section, but the last part says shall, let's see here, not apply to a licensee who's been convicted, pleads guilty to or enters a plea of no contest to a felony or a conviction relating to controlled substances or a conviction related to sexual misconduct. The reason I'm concerned with this is because this is a national situation and there are some states that are very conservative, and their definition of sexual misconduct is very different than what ours would be. But again, I don't know that it necessarily relates to us, but I just, that thought came to mind. Any thoughts from? I don't see anybody. Yeah, Jessica.
So Dr. Bennett, please feel free to correct me if I'm misinterpreting this, but this sounds to me like a diversion program, because it says, it starts off with the board may defer action with regard to impaired licensees if they voluntarily sign an agreement to enter into treatment. And we do not do this. We do have a wellness program that used to be called our diversion program. That people can voluntarily enter into. But if we receive any kind of complaint that someone is practicing impaired, or we find that the individual is, we don't defer action. What we would do is take action and put them on probation with certain terms and conditions. This is in lieu of that action, which if you don't have an action, it's no longer a public document and no one knows that this person entered into this program. And so it's really in lieu of discipline. They can go into this agreement that they're going to go into this program. So that's not something that we do or I would recommend we do. I don't know about other states who are doing this. Dr. Bennett?
So I think that's the same interpretation I have, but what this is saying is the board may not defer action if the impaired licensee has a conviction related to sexual misconduct, I think.
Right. I'm just saying in general, we don't defer. So it doesn't even, we won't
Okay.
even do it because we don't defer action for we don't have this arrangement is what I'm saying.
Got it. And we do define conviction, just for your reference, conviction is capitalized, which means that we have a definition for it. And it's conviction of a crime by a court of competent jurisdiction and shall include a finding or verdict of guilt, whether or not the adjudication of guilt is withheld or not entered on admission of guilt, and no contest plea, a plea of nolo contendere, or a guilty plea, FYI. But yes, I see your point.
Okay. All right. So I think I'm done with what I had. Anybody else? Okay.
All right.
So I think are we done with this?
We are.
Okay. So Dr. Bennett, thank you so much
Yes,
for
thank you so
being
much.
here. I'm so glad you were on the line. And
Do we want to take public comment while Dr. Bennett is on the line to see if there is any
Sure.
about anything related to AAVSB?
sure. Moderator, can you open up public comment, please?
This is the moderator. The Q&A is now open. The instructions will be on this, they are on the screen here. If you would like to participate and you're logged in, click on the question mark inside of the square, typically bottom right corner of your WebEx screen, and type the word comment in the text field. Make sure it goes to all panelists before clicking that send button.
And this is public comment for all of item 15.
Yeah, sure.
At this time, I'm not seeing any requests coming in. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you. Okay, we are going to take a 15-minute break and come back.
Thank you, Dr. Bennett.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Bennett.
This was actually really fun. So thank you.
Oh, good, good. We're
thanks for your
happy
feedback.
to, we're very engaged. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Welcome back, whoever is still on the line. Now we are moving to agenda item 16, update discussion and possible action on 2025 Sunset Review Report. Jessica.
All right. So just like we had in, January, but that doesn't count because that got canceled. Just like we had in April, this was a working draft of our sunset report. It is due to the legislature in January. This is a very substantive report, and it's from this entire board. So our team, we started working on this actually at the end of last year with the last year's template from the Sunset Committee, the Joint Committee through the Assembly and the Senate. We use that template to put in all of the information and start working on it because it's very significant and it will continuously take some time. But we wanted to provide as much opportunity as possible for the board to be able to digest this document and provide any kind of input on it. Because we really want to make sure that all of the members are very comfortable with what is being put in here, because this is the report to the legislature. So with that, if we could go section by section and just know that this is not going to be the last opportunity to weigh in. We just want to make sure that we're on the right track. And if you do have things that you want to add to, please let us know. Things you want to remove, also let us know. And then hopefully by October, we'll have more of a final version for you to adopt and then for us to send to the legislature. We are quite a bit ahead of schedule, and I just really want to thank our team for putting this together and getting us to this point. It's pretty unusual to have most of our report done by this time, considering we just actually got the 2025 template a couple weeks ago. So there was also a DCA arranged meeting yesterday that I was at, not yesterday, Tuesday, the MDC meeting. I wasn't going to attend, but because we ended up getting out early, I was able to attend a meeting that DCA arranged with the Senate and Assembly committee staff and DCA representatives who are up for sunset. And there was a lot of discussion. And after that, there was a subsequent meeting with all of the board EOs who were up for sunset. And one of the questions was, oh, how's everyone doing on it? But everybody had just received it. And so there wasn't like, no one was really speaking. And I said, well, we're pretty much very close to completing it because we had done all this work up front. So I really want to thank our team for all the work that it's a lot of work that they put into it. So I just want to thank you for that. With that, it's not perfect, nor will it ever be. But with that, we do want to go by sections. If you do have any kind of concerns or updates or input, that's what we're seeking.
Okay. Anybody?
Okay, so I read it and it was, if you have edits, just submit them to you.
If you have grammatical or typos that you want to provide to us, we'd rather not spend time with that. You could just email that to us and we'll clean it up, because our team will constantly do this. We'll have
Right.
a lot of eyes on it to finalize. But if you have substantive content things that you want to share, then yes, let us know, and then we can concentrate on that. You can also email that to us. But
Okay, because that's my thing is like, I'd kind of talked to Rob and Patty about it. Okay, I'll just, some of it I'm going to wait and some of it I'll bring up. Okay.
And then also just a quick note on the committees, there will be a lot added in there based on all of the committees that were just recently reported that we created for the MDCs. So all of those subcommittees will be added. And I also reached out to ICVA and AAVSB to get a list of all of the meetings that we are involved with when it comes to national involvement. Because Kathy Bowler is, as you all know, very much involved in ICVA. So they provided us a list of all of the things that she has been doing with all the dates that she does it, because those are all things that we report to the legislature. And then we'll do something similar for all of, there's a lot of us who are very much involved in AAVSB activities. So that'll all be added in here too.
Okay, with that information, Christy, did you have some? Are we, is that what we're going to do? I mean, I feel like.
It's up to you.
Yeah, go section by section.
All right, so section 1 is the background and description of the board and regulated profession. Another thing that the committee staff had reiterated that for the background and for things that didn't change from the prior sunset, if there's no changes, because a lot of their questions have remained the same for the last several decades, and they have said there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. if nothing has changed and it's the exact same question, they are fully anticipating the same response.
Okay, so with that section, I did this the Sunday before you posted it, so I think you've already updated a lot of this with board members, bios, things like that. So Jamie Nolan's off of it, I'm assuming.
Yep,
Um,
and
but-
Patrick is
Great.
added.
Yes, however,
Okay,
so on the wellness evaluation committee, I know that that's the same, but if it doesn't read well, can we change, can we edit it?
yeah, absolutely. So if you either have actual edits that you have or just in what the concern is, and then we can work to address it.
Okay.
Yep.
And so should we do that now?
Sure.
Okay, so I just thought that I'll,
What
if I
page are you-
can read what I said, what I suggest, and
Okay.
it, so it's just the first part, the board's WEC was statutorily authorized in 1982 to assist the board in seeking ways and means to identify and rehabilitate afflicted veterinarians and RVTs with dangerous drug or alcohol abuse impairment affecting competency, so they may be treated and returned to the practice of veterinary medicine in a manner that will not endanger public health and safety. Does that? Oh,
that didn't make very much sense to me.
here,
No, I heard you.
because
To me, this seems really clear, I guess, but
and we
rehabilitate
can leave it,
veterinarians
it's
and
fine if
RVTs
you
with
want to leave it.
impairment.
It was really hard. First of all, manner that will not endanger the public health.
Kara,
Go ahead, I didn't know. Is that directly from the Practice Act?
Yeah, it's
Okay. That's what I
PC
was,
section 4860.
and
it's a
I
direct
figured it
quote.
was.
Yeah.
Okay, then we can leave it. But then when we go to Patrick's, everybody else, it says appointed to the board, and his says appointed to the California Medical Board, Veterinary Medical Board.
Yep. We'll fix
So,
that.
okay.
Thank you.
okay, I'm sorry, I can't pull up both on my screen and really read it. So on mine, on page, I guess 7 or it says
Resident.
893 on mine. That's weird. Number 2, in the past 4 years, was the board unable to hold any meetings? Did you guys expand on that?
We did. Let me get to,
Just to answer the questions they asked.
yeah, so,
Okay.
and it's on the screen, but I'll read it to you. It says now, in January 17-18, 2024, board meeting was canceled. Wait, sorry, the January 17-18, 2024 board meeting was canceled due to lack of quorum of members able to participate in the same physical location. At the time, the board had 6 members, one of which was scheduled to participate virtually. A few days prior to the meeting, a member tested positive for COVID and could not participate in person. While the member was willing to participate virtually, the new requirement for a quorum of members to be physically present at the same location forced the board, and it should be to cancel the meeting. All items scheduled for the January meeting were pushed to April, causing the board to add an additional day to the meeting.
It's funny, it's almost exactly what I read. But it's written better, of course, in yours. Okay.
That's what I had.
Let's see here. Anybody have anything else?
Well, if you want, I'm sure on page 13 of 88. I don't know if you want on number 8, did you remove the 9 that's at the bottom of the page just randomly for an app? It's in a summary for an applicant. 9.
We'll have to remove that. So, and my guess is, because this is a copy from prior materials. So on the second line under summary, if we can remove that, yeah, perfect, thank you.
Okay.
And again, if you have any like
That's
edits
what I
like
was
this,
just gonna send
yeah,
you.
if you can just send
those.
us those.
That's
we
what
can
I,
make
yeah,
them.
I had the 2 as well, and I was just gonna send all that to
Okay.
you.
Okay, on mine, I have on page 19.
Here, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Page 14, there's also a random number.
Oh, yeah. Those are
Yeah,
just
so it says once the one BCPR is established, so on number 9, that first paragraph, second to the last line, starts with physical hands-on. Yeah, just remove that one.
So page 19.
Mhm.
Okay, this is terrible that I'm on the wrong document. I'm gonna just, this is under regulation activity.
Uh-huh.
Number 2 was where I was, so I don't know.
What regulation?
Subject matter RVT job tasks.
Okay, so that's page
CCR
17 of our
Title
document.
16. It just says this regulatory change allows RVTs to perform additional animal healthcare tasks under indirect. I just didn't know if, it seemed like a
That
lot
may
of
be-
them were very detailed, but do we want to describe what the tasks are? Yeah. Did we want to add detail to that? It just, but that's.
Yeah, we can. There's also not a period at the end of that, but yeah, we can add more description to that one.
Okay, and then on page 20 on mine, so the next page, under number 9, summary. It says, the regulatory change implements the uniform standards regarding substance abusing healing arts licensees adopted by the DCA Substance Abuse Coordination Committee pursuant to BPC Section 315 and following. What is,
Yeah, that doesn't.
is there something beyond that?
It means it's a public expression for ETSEC. So normally you would see ETSEC after the first section numbers to delineate that it's section 315 and everything else under that article. So,
Oh.
I mean, you could either use ETSEC or and following. It's one of the two.
Okay.
I think we should change it to the EDSEC. I think the and following anyone that doesn't know the legalese.
Yeah.
I think like that's not right.
Yeah,
Like,
I
and
think,
following what?
I mean, alternatively, you could do pursuant to BPC sections 315 through, and then just actually list the last section number into that article. I think there's only like 3 or 4 statutes under that article, but yeah, I mean, at least strike and following and insert something else that's clearer.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Then number 10, the one after it, let's see. Yeah. I had a note that said, is there any need to explain why we needed this? Since there was number 6, CCR Title 16, 2090 to 2095, BPC 4826.5 already mentioned.
So you're asking why we have 10 in there at all? Is that what you're
Well,
asking?
I guess it's let's see here. Again, I did this a week and a half ago. So what's number 6?
So, and it's probably because there was 2 different packages. The
Uh-huh.
board approved the rulemaking package for the drug compounding.
Uh-huh.
And then after it took effect, then we did another package doing additional things with those sections.
Right.
And so the intent of this whole section is to let the legislature know what we've been doing in the rulemaking world.
Right.
And so that's why you'd see the 2 separate things. So there are 2 separate packages. This one is still in process.
But
everything that we've been
do
doing.
we need to explain why we needed it? Like, why do
It-
we need to do it again? Like, if I were somebody looking at this, like, it would be like, oh, okay, well, we already had this package that, now we're like, why, I don't know. It's just a thought that like, because there was some confusion, this needed to be done, or
Yeah, you could add, this proposed regulatory change would provide additional clarification.
Yeah. It's here. Now, why is it here?
Yeah, got it.
So I guess if you would type in this regulatory change would, and then insert, provide additional clarification of drug compounding regulation and then just continue with the sentence.
All right, and then in number 4, describe, sorry, this is down at the end of all of those. In number 4, describe any major studies. Didn't we do the test study since the last sunset?
The occupational analysis, that was the last sunset because we used that. So the last sunset had the 2 occupational analysis and linkage studies for the VTE
Okay.
and the ICVA, and we used that in the last sunset to remove the exams.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I thought one was done right before and one was done right after, but there we go. Okay. That's the question I had there. Okay. I had some note to update. You already said you were going to be doing. And the purpose of the reviews. Last paragraph of that section. It says the last occupational analysis was in 2017. Didn't we do another one? The very last.
So I think that that is correct. By the time I had started with the board, both occupational analysis had already been completed. There was the VTNE and the NAVLE. And so I think that is correct. I'm pretty sure we had checked, but we'll double check the date. The actions that followed were after that, that we took action on and it was presented, but it was actually completed in 2017.
It's amazing how quickly government things work. We're wrapped. I was like, I was on the board when we were talking about this. Okay. That's it that I have for that section. Anybody else? Doesn't look like it. Okay, go ahead.
All right, section 2, fiscal and staff. Any questions or suggestions for this section? Be filling in the missing data for the fiscal year that just closed. We just didn't have that available yet.
Yeah.
Just a quick question on number 6. Are we supposed to cite the statute?
So it says, if yes, please cite the statute outlining, and the answer is no. We are not continuously appropriated.
Okay, it looks like we can move on.
I want to mention in here, members, and as those of us who were here at that time, the issue of fee increases was discussed at the last sunset because we went to our statutory caps prior to the sunset. And there was a discussion at that time was we were going to ask the legislature to increase that statutory cap. It would not automatically increase the fees, but it would give the board authority to do so in regulations. But because we were able to have a lot of cost savings, we were able to further delay the need for that. And so we told the legislature that although we are not asking for a fee increase at this time, we will need to do it. I believe we had thought that we would need it in the year 26, 27, which would be in our sunset. What we're looking at now is we were able to extend that even further to, it looks like we're projecting to need a fee increase in the year 2930, which falls under the next, this sunset window to where we would need to do a statutory cap at this sunset. And so that is mentioned here. We have been very transparent with our industry stakeholders, specifically CVMA, letting them know that even if we raised our fees in statute in this sunset, that does not mean that they're automatic. We would still have to go through the process if and when we need to raise that. So I just wanted to flag that. All right.
Yep.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, go ahead.
Okay. Section 3, licensing program.
Okay, I have, see here, this is below all of the graphs, number 23, describe the examinations required, and maybe this has been taken out already, removing the state-specific examination.
Number 23.
Yep, describe the examinations required for licensure.
So right now it reads, currently veterinary license applicants may take and pass a national exam and a law exam.
Perfect, that's it. Next page. Are there existing statutes that hinder the efficient and effective processing of the applications and or examinations? If so, please describe. The board has identified statutes that hinder the efficient and effective processing of applications and or examinations. The board has made changes to the following statutes to streamline the process, and it doesn't, there's nothing listed.
Yeah, I apologize, members. So this will need to be amended because the purpose of this was, and what the legislature is trying to gather is if there's statutes that are hindering your processes, let us know. And if we've already mentioned it in our new issues, that's another way to identify that. But currently, we haven't had existing statutes that I know of that are actually hindering our process when it comes to licensing. So I think our team will amend this section.
To say no. Great, okay.
I'll double check with my team, because if there are that maybe I'm just forgetting on the spot right now, we'll reach out. But right now I'm not thinking of specific statutes that are hindering the licensing process.
That's all I have. Anybody else? Okay.
Nope. It's amazing that you can't see it when you're scanning it.
All right, section 4, enforcement program.
My highlights don't show.
Okay, I have here for B. What is the average dollar amount of settlements reported to the board? Not answered.
What's the number?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, it's B.
So if you have, sorry, I see it now.
It's a
Nine.
reasonable question.
Page 49.
I have 53, but
Oh.
page 53, it's number
Yeah.
36B. What is the average dollar amount of settlements reported to the board?
So there is a number there right now. It says the average dollar amount of settlements reported to the board over the past 4 fiscal years was 24,124.
Yeah, I'm like, I have a number.
22.
Yeah,
37 doesn't have
right.
have one, but that's because A and B are breaking out that question. A,
Okay.
B, C. Yeah.
Okay, I think I had this, where's my other?
I have an answer.
Yeah.
There was one
Is my microphone.
about the total amount, this 40 cost recovery and restitution, for number 47. How many and how much is ordered by the board for revocation, surrenders, and probationers? And then it says, over the prior 3 fiscal years, the board has ordered cost recovery on an average of 8 times per year, with each order averaging $170,000. Is that correct?
No, we'll have to double check that. I don't know that offhand right now. We can double check that though.
Okay.
And it's not actually asking for an average. It's asking how much was ordered. So I think we should be more specific in there.
Okay.
Yeah, and the question is how many and how much. So I think we can expand that a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. What's this one? Oh, this is, oh, no, that's the next section. Never mind.
Everybody good with this section so far?
So, is section 5 on page 52? It looks like maybe the heading for section 5.
Oh, yeah. For
Is
public
the-
information policies.
Right.
Yep. Okay, so section 5, public information policies. All right, I'm just going to keep going.
Oh, I
and
know,
this-
I'm sorry. I
Let's-
was trying to find a document that I had my questions on that I apparently have closed, which I didn't mean to. But that's okay.
Section 6.
No,
go ahead, go ahead. Okay.
just a
section
second,
5.
one
Yeah,
second.
sorry.
Okay, so number 51, how does the board use the internet to keep the public informed of board activities? This is the very first question under public information policies. I felt like this didn't have an answer to how long meeting materials are posted. It looks like the answer is only pertaining to meeting minutes. So we just have to add that. I mean, I know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and it says final meeting. Oh, yeah. And it says and return for, but it doesn't say that they're online. We'll add that.
Great.
Thank you.
And then let's see. Prevalence of online. Oh, this is number 57 last. Oh, never mind. Online, this different section.
Section 6. This will be amended. This needs to go more further in detail. I could do that.
Okay. I was like, any comments about that?
Yeah, no, we need to, we're still working on that section.
Great.
Sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Section 7, workforce development and job creation. I do want to note for this section, typically the board, and I think I said this during the April meeting, typically the board doesn't have a lot of role when it comes to workforce development. Our role is licensing individuals, not bringing people to the profession. But over the last couple sunsets, there's been some members of the legislature who think that the board should play a more active role, but the challenge is we don't have resources to do that. What I can say is that DCA has acknowledged that this is becoming a reoccurring theme, and so they're being proactive to assisting the board with these efforts and exploring ways that we can all work together to be there, have more of a public facing in these workforce development issues and look at doing some collaboration with the community and outreach. And if there's one board who has staff going out, we can disseminate all information of all licensees out there. There's a lot of things that they're working on. And during this meeting with DCA on Tuesday, I had asked, I acknowledged the work that they're trying to be proactive on. And I asked if DCA had information they would like us to add in here to be a more unified voice. And so they're working on that as well.
So things like our enforcement and inspection webinars wouldn't fit under this because it's not workforce development, it's just
right
outreach. Okay.
But I think things that could go in it are things that we have done with, so not necessarily the student outreach, because those are individuals who are already interested in getting into the workforce. But one thing we did do is work to assist RVT candidates to take the exam, but while they're still in school prior to graduation. And I think that really helped workforce development, because what they were seeing is these individuals would graduate And then it'd be years later before they take the exam. And the statistics were showing that these individuals weren't passing because the longer they went away from graduation, the less successful they were. And so then they were not entering the workforce. And so by us fighting for them to be able to take it while they're still in school, the statistics show they will be a lot more successful and therefore be able to enter the workforce more.
What about even having board liaisons? I mean, isn't that part of it? Because it's engagement and it's not even, or is that still considered outreach? Because they're here on the board and it's intimidating, but they're still engaging with others. So
Yeah, and so I think, and I wrote it down here when Annie,
Yeah.
Anna was talking about the engagement that so we could say that what we're doing with students, but again, they're looking at more of how we're getting people to enter the workforce when the student's already interested. But they did say that she has community outreach events where they have people from high schools coming. And I think we can use that piece of it to work with them to maybe have a booth and go out there when they're doing these community events to partner with them. Right.
I like that.
How much is the CVMA doing in information? What veterinarians do and not at a lot of the different fairs and high schools or
Yeah.
TV programs or, just short clips, between Breeders' Cup or things like that too.
Yeah, I think that that's something that I also wrote down. I think Anna had said it about CVMA and reaching out to high schools and undergrads. And I think that that's something we can reach out to them that I was unaware of and see if we can partner with them and maybe participate in some of those community events with the high schools.
So under 62, number 62, A, I know we haven't done our own studies, but we have been made aware of data about workforce shortages with food animal and equine, as well as
Yeah.
RVTs and so.
So right now it's blank because we're still researching that. But yes, I do think the information that CDFA has and then also HCI, if you recall, those are the individuals who are now collecting data when licensees renew. There's now an optional survey that they're participating in to try to gather potential shortages. So trying to get that information from them as well.
And isn't there data on shelter medicine as well? Isn't there one on,
That I don't know.
I thought there was one on,
Yeah. Well, was that with the, no, it wasn't with the access to care stuff. Well, I was just
Well-
wondering if perhaps in October, if we were to have somebody present, because I know the AVMA has done studies. I know that the CVMA, I think the CVMA has done some studies on workforce shortages, then we could include this.
Yeah.
We would be aware of the data then. And if we're able to present some of these things as workforce shortages, perhaps there would be more appetite for grant programs and things like that at the state level. So,
Got
or
it.
tax relief, et cetera. So I think it'd be important to try and include some of these things here.
Okay.
And also I know Correct has been working on, and I think, or Cal Animals also is involved in analyzing the hiring and retention of shelter veterinarians in the shelters. I think they did a California specific study
Okay.
because there's a national one and then there's a California specific one. Maybe we could reach out to them.
Yeah, if you have contact information or I think it'd be good to provide both the national and the California specific would be helpful. All right. Anything else?
Item 63, I was just thinking, do we include any board efforts regarding DEI. Just like I think the whole land acknowledgement is a step forward that has never been done before. So maybe there's something that we could, include specifically that DCA has identified DEI as a major concern.
Yep, we could do that.
And I don't know if under number 63, where it says would seek to protect those communities from harm by licensees, I guess it may be a stretch, but our access to care subcommittee was looking, I don't know if that's a stretch to put there.
And we can definitely add a sentence or two in there. Yep. Okay. All right, section 8, current issue. Hearing none from that, that was pretty short section. And then, all right, section 9, 9 and 10, we're getting into the meat of it. So section 9, these are the board action and responses to prior sunset issues. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the background paper and the process, what you see before you is in bold under the heading of each one. That was the heading of an issue that was raised in their background paper, the joint committee background paper. And then the committee staff recommendation came from the committee staff specifically. A lot of the update information came from our written board responses to that background. So how the process goes is we submit our sunset report, the committee will write their background paper, provide a whole background of the board, identify any issues that they see, and then that's provided to the members of the legislature during the hearing. The president and vice president and I will all be there to testify, and we will be prepared to respond to any issues that they bring up. And then after that, you have a period of time to submit a written response to all of the issues that they identified. And so a lot of times with our prior responses, we had already were pretty specific in what we have done to address it or what the legislature assisted us to do. So a lot of this stuff was already addressed through our sunset itself. So you see a lot of references of that the sunset effectively helped us with this issue. But if there's anything that you want to add or remove, please let us know.
Okay. Tons. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have.
And that tons would be great. Tons would be great.
This is under the second question at the very bottom, right before number 3, under RVT subcommittee. It writes the board's MDC recently created an RVT subcommittee. I feel like we've had this RVT subcommittee for years.
So not a specific RVT subcommittee. What it was if there was a specific issue, we would have the 2 RVTs work on that issue, but the subcommittee was called that issue. So we had recently the board had asked the MDC to look at the issue of the RVT educational programs. So it was an RVT education subcommittee to deal with that specific issue. And so this committee was renamed to focus on all issues regarding the RVTs.
I did not realize that.
Yeah.
I've been on the MDC and I've been on the board, and I thought this whole time this was just under the general heading of the RVT subcommittee. Okay. Dating. Oh, number 7, out-of-state RVT applicants. I, this, I don't know that
Number 7,
out-of-state RVT applicants. Did you take that out of the,
under section 10. Oh, hold on.
did I go down too far? Is there another section? My pager's number says 88, so I am.
I think you went to a different section. That's okay. We can jump there if that's the next.
Else have things on the last section? Okay. Well,
No, it's fine.
just going from comment to comment.
Okay, so are we in section 10, new issues? So this, all of these issues are things that the board had already discussed and either as part of the strat plan or over the last 4 years have raised issues that we want to put forward, but haven't been able to put into an omnibus bill because it's more substantive or potentially more controversial. So we're wanting to put it into our sunset bill. And so where you see actual language, that's because the board has already approved that language. There's a couple, specifically the unlicensed practice penalties, the licensure exemptions, where we haven't had the actual language adopted yet because we really need more discussion with stakeholders to identify this, but we're letting the legislature know that this is an issue. We will be providing language that we think will solve it. It's just going to take a little time for us to work through.
Okay. Number 7.
All right. Rolling, sorry. Okay. Out-of-state RVT applicants. Yes.
Yeah. So when I read over this got me thinking how in our state, we require some education, but out of state that doesn't have education, we're saying we want to maintain out of state license reciprocity. Does it seem fair to allow for that while requiring somebody in California to have education? I don't know how, like, either, I feel like we either have to, allow for just an alternate pathway or like without education, or I just started thinking about it and it doesn't seem fair.
So I think just a little bit of backstory. We had our prior to the sunset, we had the statute, and then we have this regulation. The statute had always required education and experience when it came to that alternate path, but in the regulation itself, and which has been around for, it was a very old reg. I don't have the date, but it was I think a couple decades. But it allows for individuals who are already licensed RVTs in other states to come in with just the experience. And so we're at a spot where the regulation has existed for a very long time, but it didn't appear to be supported by statute. And so if you're looking at, so we're sorry, go ahead.
So recently the board got changes made to section 4848.
In our sunset, yeah.
Right. And through that process, the out-of-state reciprocity kind of got removed. And so effectively, it was supported 2068.6 out-of-state registration. It was supported before we made that change to 4848. I'm pretty sure it was in there, but then we repealed 4848 for other reasons. And now 2068.6 out-of-state reciprocity is just kind of hanging out there doing nothing. And so we were hoping to get it into statute so that, we would just continue what the board was doing in recognizing out-of-state licensure.
Okay. So I think the board has always had this pathway through regulation to allow out-of-state individuals with that experience to apply, and is not supported by statute. But so the concern is, one, you either remove that because the statute doesn't support it, or you make it so it's very clear that they can do that. If you decide to remove it because the statute doesn't support it, what happens is that you have to demonstrate why you're doing that, other than the statute doesn't allow it, because these individuals have been able to do it this entire time. So if there was consumer harm that we can point to that say these individuals were never qualified to do it, should never have been practicing, that would be a good justification to remove that pathway. But because there's been a pathway this whole time, I would caution the board against removing it.
I guess I was thinking that perhaps if we think it's okay to have people from other states doing that and there hasn't been any harm, why are we requiring it?
Well, this is making clear that they can, like they can do.
No,
that.
I know, but why do, like, if somebody in California wants to be an RVT who hasn't been in
Oh, I see
school
what
or
you're
whatever, now they have to move to another state, get their alternative pathway RVT, and then they can come back and practice. It,
They go
I-
to a state, get their license and come back and
yeah.
go here. That's
so
a
that's what they're
loophole.
doing.
That's a loophole. I know they're doing
Yeah,
it.
so, but what?
It's a huge loophole.
if
They
we don't think-
go get their license because there's no requirement, and then they come back here and practice.
Yes, what I'm saying is, if we don't think there's a risk of consumer harm by allowing people doing that, why don't we remove the educational requirements for the alternative pathway to make it equal and fair?
And I think that's something that we can definitely look at and maybe assign it to the MDC to take a look at it and bring some recommended language. But I think we do have to have that, because that's a big change, but have that discussion. I think it's a good discussion to have.
I understand what you're saying, because it's like, it's happening already. They're going to other states, taking the test.
Which is fine. And so do we want this in sunset? I guess we do, because we
we would.
want to, okay, so we would want this, and then the next sunset perhaps have that,
No, or we
or
could,
we could make a
ask for both.
regulation, or, okay.
We can ask, so we can have the MDC look at this in between the next meeting, and by October, raise it and then potentially have some recommendations.
Okay, that would be very fast, but that would be fantastic.
That's what we do.
Okay, I like it. Any other comments? Okay. Sorry if that was a roundabout way of saying what I meant there, but it just, to me, seems like, well, if we don't think there's consumer harm, then why are we requiring it? Okay, the next comment I have is remove authority to approve CE. So this one I know we've talked about, and it seemed like it all made sense. And then it got me thinking, particularly like as AB 814 was coming through, where we might, if some legislation occurs that we don't necessarily support, we may want to be able to require CE.
You mean like if a new license was created to require a CE? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
So that would be the authority to require CE comes from the statute itself.
Mhm.
And so if a new license was created at that time, we would ask for the authority to require continuing education for that license. What this is giving the board authority to approve continuing education in addition to the extensive legislative list that's in statute. So those are kind of different to where you're looking at.
I guess these, like, as things have been coming up, it makes me a little concerned to like remove this just so that we don't look like we're over-regulating. Like, maybe we want to keep this as an option.
Yeah, so the only true, and that was part of the board's strat plan too, looked at the authority in statute to approve the CE providers. But as it says in here, we've never approved CE providers. In order to do that, you would need to have a process to do that. It's very cumbersome. We could do it, but we also don't have any regulations to that. So it would be creating this process. And there was a recent bill that was related to continuing education providers and courses. And if you're doing this, you have to have this conflict of interest policy. There's a lot of regulations entailing it, where right now, if we've never done it and we don't foresee doing it, it'll just eliminate this confusion, because some individuals could contact us and say, well, we want to apply for approval because we don't want to go through their processes of getting approval because it's expensive to do. So we want you, board, to do it, which you have the statutory authority to do. And then what would you do with that?
Just say we don't do that right now.
Which is what we've been doing, but that's the thing is
I mean,
Right.
how,
Yeah.
well, but it leaves that there for us should something unexpected occur, which can happen quite rapidly. You know, it could be correct. And so do we really need to remove this?
So just think of the list in statute, that it's an extensive list. I don't know how many there are in there. There's, I don't know, like, I want to say 18, but that could be wrong. But there's a lot of entities that already approved to provide continuing education. And so if there was this new license that was created, I would assume that all of those entities that are now approved to provide CE would then be providing that CE. Do you know what I'm saying? So like CVMA. So if there's a new license and the requirement to do CE, CVMA would start doing CE. You know what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily the board would have to go through this whole approval process in order for them to do it, because there's already these other providers that are doing it.
Okay. Any other comments? I'm done with mine.
I just have something on number 4, the strategic plan goal 4.5, adding RBT to board composition. It just says here the board shall consist of following 8 members, but I'm counting 9 of what we're requesting.
Oh, look at that.
Yep, we'll change that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My math is off.
That was, yeah, we'll fix that. Thank you. Nope. Section 12 or at section 11?
Section 10, item 12,
Item 12, okay.
page 87.
Release of animal patient records?
Yes.
Okay.
So the board during the October 2023 meeting, is that right? I'm thinking, you know, we've got this included here because the board's already approved this language.
Yes.
It's making amendments to 4856.
Right. Yeah, the board approved that language.
So yesterday, the board approved some language to require a licensee manager of a veterinary premises to provide client payments made for services rendered. And this language right here under new subdivision D or C that the board approved would require a registered veterinary premises shall make records available. So for consistency with new proposed 4855.1, where the licensee manager of the premises is responsible for disclosing the records, I'm recommending that the board add under subdivision C before a registered veterinary premises, add the language, the licensee manager for the, and then strike A. So on that first line, not on the third line, on the first line after C paren, strike A and insert the licensee manager for the, and then it would just continue on with registered veterinary premises. That's just for consistency's sake, that the onus is on the licensee manager to make sure that the records are provided.
So just to clarify, does every veterinary premise who has a license, you pay your fee, you have to designate a licensed manager?
Yes, every registered premises has to have a licensing manager. So, and they are responsible for making sure that the premises is compliant with all of the minimum standards.
Got a new job, I guess.
All right, and members, just a reminder, as we go along, because yesterday you approved additional legislative changes, and as the MDC continues to work, there will be more that are added onto this in October, so.
So the administrative procedure manual is also included in this. I had some things on that. I don't know if,
So if you want to make specific amendments to the admin manual, what I recommend is we agendize it for October to update the manual, and then we will include that as an attachment.
okay, let's do that.
Okay,
They're not, yeah, they're, okay.
all right. Well, that gets us through it so far. So thank you all so very much. Do we want to take public comment if there are any
Yeah.
on any input for this?
Yes, moderator, would you open it up to public comment, please?
Yes, this is the moderator. The Q&A is now open. The instructions are on the screen for your reference. If you're logged in and would like to participate, click on that question mark inside of the square, typically bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. Type the word comment in the text field. Make sure it goes to all panelists before clicking that send button. At this time, I see no requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. Okay, so next is agenda item 18, future agenda items and next meeting.
So October will be anything from the MDC in that list of tasks that they're all working on. The priority will be provided to those tasks that will require legislative changes with the hope to put into our sunset report. So those will be added during this meeting. I also noted, Dr. Barbara, you recently asked for a presentation on workforce shortage from various entities, so we'll reach out for that. CBMA yesterday also asked for 2086.4 on continuing education, a regulatory change. So I do think that that's something that the MDC can work on, or actually potentially not even go to the MDC, depending on how clear it is. We could bring it to the board in October and not go through the MDC. That'll depend, but that'll be a future agenda item that I got from this board meeting. I don't know if any of you have any additional requests.
When I was looking through the minutes, there was a discussion about adding Spectrum of Care initiative to a future agenda item. I think it was Dr. Nolan actually who had asked for that, but I know that we all felt like that was important.
So, and I do know one of the tasks that one of the MDC work group is doing, and I believe it's the outreach, but I have to go back and look at it. But one of the subcommittees is we're going to work on outreach material for both consumers and licensees when dealing with Spectrum of Care. Because we know, one, consumers don't know what that means. And also, like what we've heard was the licensees, there's some that are very uncomfortable with providing what they're thinking is the lower standard of care. So there's going to be outreach material to help them with that, and also how to talk to individuals about it.
Christy?
I did a really nice continuing education on that, and I actually enjoyed it, learning about it, because I knew it was going to be something that we talked about, and I found it interesting. I think it would be super helpful to do outreach on it. I think it's important for everyone.
Dr. Solacito?
Yeah, I just wanted to, is there any update on our access to care subcommittee? Like, where we
I mean, they did what was asked of them, was to look at work with CVMA, look at what's out there. They provided reports. I don't have all the details of everything they did, but it wasn't an ongoing thing that they're constantly doing. But out of that came the need for more outreach materials on the spectrum of care and go from there.
So there's no, like a conclusive report, like that this is what we found.
I mean, they provided updates regularly at board meetings of the things that they were doing, but there wasn't like a
A formal.
all inclusive. Yeah.
So I guess I was, we had, I think at the AAVSB, we had a few presentations on spectrum of care. And I think the idea was more, while it's great that the MDC is doing that stuff, and I think that's really necessary, I don't know that all of us understand the nuances and differences of spectrum of care. And I think that term probably means something different to each of us. So I don't know if there's anybody who can present.
Okay. So presentation.
Yeah, that was like a leader in the field, Dr. Solicito.
And in addition, maybe our subject matter experts need to be familiarized with the whole concept of.
Oh, we are
spectrum.
very much having that a topic discussion.
Yeah, I wonder if whoever we have do that, we can perhaps for the quarterly subject matter expert training, have that as one of the trainings. So.
Yep. For the future agenda items, that admin manual will be on there as well.
Okay. And I don't know that we need to do them all in October, depending on how
Yes.
that looks. But
Like October is getting,
yeah, well,
but yeah, it's a list for future agenda items.
yeah.
Yep.
And just so that it doesn't get forgotten, because
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
And then the next meeting dates, they're online through 2025. So.
Okay. Any other, a public comment on future agenda items? Moderator, please.
This is the moderator. The Q&A is now open. The instructions are on the screen for your reference. If you're logged in, would like to participate, click the question mark inside of the square, type comments, send it to all panelists. At this time, I see no requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please, moderator. Thank you. Okay, I think with that,
I think we just need to go on record. We do not have any closed session items, so we won't be going into closed session.
so we are adjourning the meeting.